There are people who were never meant to become heroes, yet fate forces them to be. And Wang Lin is one of them. Born into an ordinary family, he carried a simple wish in his heart to cultivate immortality and repay his parents' kindness. But the world is never that kind. No talent, no background, no guidance, everything seemed to whisper to him, the path of cultivation is not for you. Yet in the midst of that hopelessness, Wang Lin chose something that very few have the courage to do. He kept going. He walked forward with stubbornness. He walked forward with longing. He walked forward with everything left in his resilient heart. A strange opportunity came to him, opening a path of cultivation drenched in blood and loneliness. There, every improvement required a sacrifice. Every step forward meant losing something precious. To grow stronger, he had to endure 100 times more than ordinary people. Renegade Immortal is the tale of a man who never submits. A man willing to defy the heavens, defy fate, and defy the world just to protect what his heart refuses to let go. This is not merely an immortal cultivation story. This is the journey of a soul so powerful that even eternity must bow. And today, I invite you to step into that journey, the journey of Wang Lin, the man who walks against the will of heaven to find the answer meant for himself. Zanbai's heart ached, but he was inherently resolute. At this moment, a cold glint flashed in his eyes, and a bloodthirsty, frenzied look appeared. He potted his storage bag, and immediately a swarm of powerful red insects appeared around him. Zheng Niu, you and I have no mortal enmity between us. Why pursue me to the very end? I've only killed a few disciples of your Yuncha sect so far. Zanbai shouted. Now there is. Wang Lin's eyes flicked, and he pointed his right hand at Zanbai. Immediately, the scroll in the air emitted a rumbling sound. A huge vortex slowly appeared, surrounded by swirling dust. Upon closer inspection, one could see faces in the center of the vortex, most of them ferocious. Without exception, these people had all died at Wang Lin's hands. This was Wang Lin's life and death realm, a kind of heavenly reincarnation belonging to his own reincarnation. Unless Zanbai's realm reached the mid-stage of the God transformation realm, it would be useless. The insects surrounding Zanbai immediately shrieked, and suddenly a group fell from the air, each with a cloud of dust rising from its body, sucked into the vortex. Deep within Zanbai's bloodthirsty eyes was a hint of terror. He let out a loud shout, his right hand touching his forehead, and immediately the illusory image of the centipede flashed again, while a cloud of 7-colored mist rose above his head. Almost instantly, this cloud of mist transformed into a centipede about 100 feet long, a terrifying sight. Unexpectedly, beneath this centipede's head was another head, clearly that of Zanbai. This was indeed his primordial spirit. Back then in the Nine Nether Wilderness, his primordial spirit merged with this beast's, and only then did he enter the God transformation stage. The heavenly Tao he comprehended was the insect beast Tao. Using insects and beasts as his body, he utilized the laws of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth are cruel. If humans kill animals, then animals can kill humans. If humans eat animals, then animals can devour humans. On the vast path of cultivation, humans can become immortals and venerables. Similarly, animals can also become immortals. Why shouldn't humans be the center of all things? Zanbai's insect beast Tao is based on insects and beasts as the root of all things. As soon as his primordial spirit appeared, it roared, directly separating from Zanbai's body, soaring into the air, opening its huge mouth, and swallowing the swirling vortex. Wang Lin's eyes flickered, and he softly sighed, overestimating yourself. A loud bang echoed in the air. The whirlwind instantly expanded, as if mercilessly devouring Zanbai's primordial spirit. A series of agonizing screams emanated from within, finally subsiding after a long time. The heavenly tribulation scroll vanished, as if it had never existed. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and Zanbai's body instantly disintegrated, turning into a pool of flesh and blood, teeming with maggots and emitting a foul stench. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows, pointing his right hand at the pile of flesh and blood, and a flame immediately erupted. After a few hissing sounds, the maggots shrank, finally turning into dust. Only a storage bag remained on the ground. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and the storage bag shot into his hand. His divine consciousness swept over it, and his expression turned strange. There was nothing else inside. It was just a swarm of wriggling insects. He pondered for a moment, then sealed his storage bag with a talisman. After putting it away, he turned and disappeared. Upon reappearing, Wang Lin stood in the sky above the cloud heaven sect, slowly descending. Li Muan gazed at Wang Lin in astonishment. A tear of surprised joy slowly rolled down her cheek. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly coughed violently, her face turning pale as she collapsed beside him. Wang Lin's figure flashed, appearing beside Li Muan and embracing her. His expression changed, and he immediately pointed several times at her body. Then his face darkened, and he looked up and said, "Ufei, Sangqing, Fengshan. No one is to leave before I come out." Having said that, Wang Lin, holding Li Muan, immediately flew towards the eastern tower. Liu Fei and Sangqing hastily replied yes and went to attend to matters. A large halo of light slowly appeared, enveloping the entire cloud heaven sect, gradually concealing everything inside. The remaining disciples were ordered not to leave for several days. Everyone willingly obeyed this order. Their discussions almost entirely revolved around the name Zheng Niu. After finishing their tasks, Liu Fei and Sangqing exchanged glances. Both could see the excitement and fear in each other's eyes. Excitement, because the calamity of the Cloud Heaven sect had been resolved, and moreover, they hadn't expected Wang Lin to be the Zheng Niu who had appeared so many times in rumors. Fear, because of Wang Lin's return. After all, they still couldn't forget the bloody scene from that year. At this moment, the two arrived outside the eastern building, but dared not approach, sitting cross-legged at a distance. Two late-stage nascent soul elders of the Cloud Heaven sect, whose status was far higher than theirs, had already arrived, sitting cross-legged and cultivating, waiting for Wang Lin. Inside the building, Wang Lin sat cross-legged before Li Muan. At this time, Li Muan's face was pale as if devoid of blood, her body weak, and a thick aura of death surrounded her. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan in astonishment. After a while, he gritted his teeth and took out top-grade spirit stones from his storage bag, placing them on either side of Li Muan. Following that, he unleashed streams of spiritual power into Li Muan's body. Time passed, and 3 days later, Wang Lin remained frowning. Continuously channeling spiritual power into Li Muan's body for 3 days. If Wang Lin had been able to do this before his nascent soul stage, it would have severely depleted his spiritual power. But for a nascent soul cultivator, this was not a concern. Li Muan's body gradually regained some color. On the night of the 3rd day, when she opened her eyes, she saw Wang Lin in front of her and smiled happily. "Brother Wang," Li Muan said softly. Wang Lin sighed inwardly, then smiled and said, "There's nothing to worry about anymore. I will treat your body every day. After you're better, I will definitely help you find a husband." Li Muan smiled, a very happy smile, and shook her head, saying, "Are you leaving?" "Not for now," Wang Lin said seriously. Li Muan's eyes brightened, and she said softly, "Really? Really, Wanner, you've just gotten a little better. Rest for a while." Wang Lin nodded. Li Muan slowly drifted off to sleep. She leaned against Wang Lin's shoulder. Even in her sleep, a happy smile still lingered on her lips. Such a smile hadn't appeared on her face for over 100 years. After a long while, Wang Lin gently embraced Li Muan and placed her on the bed. He covered her with a blanket and then stood up to go outside. As soon as he stepped out of the room, his expression immediately turned grim. Outside, 7 people were sitting cross-legged. Among them, besides the 2 late-stage nascent soul elders, Songqing and Liu Fei, there was also Yingzi and 2 elders who had recently entered the early-stage nascent soul realm within the past 100 years. As soon as Wang Lin came out, these 7 people immediately opened their eyes and stood up. They all involuntarily held their breath. Wang Lin's former power remained, coupled with his newly emerged power, making him a terrifying figure in their eyes. Why is Wanner's body like this? 100 years ago, when I left, she was perfectly healthy. Wang Lin's voice was calm, but to the 7 people's ears, it sounded like thunder. The 2 newly advanced nascent soul cultivators were unexpectedly forced back several steps, and after stopping, expressions of terror appeared on their faces. Even though the group led by Liu Fei was greatly shaken, their nascent souls were unstable. Only the 2 late-stage nascent soul elders could remain calm under Wang Lin's voice. One of them sighed softly, saying, "Sect Master, Miss Wanner has failed 3 times in the past 100 years to form a nascent soul. and her body certainly can't withstand it. Especially the time 30 years ago, she almost died. This was the person who shielded Li Muwen when Zhan Bai arrived. Wang Lin glanced at him and said, "I remember your surname Lu." He was delighted and immediately respectfully said, "Sect Master still remembers me. I am Lu FBI." Since learning that Wang Lin was Zhang Niu, Lu FBI had immediately resolved to follow Wang Lin, hoping to one day achieve the God transformation stage. His staying at the late stage nascent soul stage for so long clearly showed he was a very practical person, willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of achieving God transformation. Wang Lin remained silent for a moment, then said, "Even the elixirs are ineffective." Lu FBI sighed inwardly. At this moment, San Qing, standing beside him, said, "Sect Master, Miss Wanner has consumed many elixirs, but..." Wang Lin looked up at the sky, a judgment already formed in his heart. A hint of bewilderment appeared in his eyes, and he lowered his voice, saying, "Continue." Songqing gritted his teeth and continued, "Miss Wanner's lifespan has increased significantly. Ordinary core formation cultivators wouldn't be able to live this long. Even with the heaven-defying method of altering fate, it's difficult to escape reincarnation. Unless Miss Wanner can successfully form a nascent soul." Wang Lin fell silent. Earlier, when he examined Li Muwen's body, he had indeed discovered that her body was filled with death energy, like a lamp running out of oil. This wasn't due to human intervention, but a manifestation of her lifespan running out. "You all withdraw," Wang Lin sighed softly, turning and returning to the building. Before entering, he paused for a moment and said, "The name Zheng Niu is strictly forbidden from being revealed. Those disciples, you go and think of a way to deal with it." Everyone responded. After Wang Lin entered the building, Lu Fei, one of the two great elders, stared at everyone and said grimly, "Gentlemen, if the sect master's identity is revealed, Han Dai of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom will certainly come looking for him. We cannot be careless about this." The other great elder, Taiyan, had a glint in his eyes. Clearly, he saw through Lu Fei's thoughts. He shared Lu Fei's idea and immediately said, "That's right. You lower-level disciples must erase their memories yourselves. Furthermore, if any of you reveal this, don't forget that your foundation is in the Chu Kingdom. At that time, don't blame me for being ruthless." Liu Fei and Songqing, of course, wouldn't spread the word. Their eyes immediately fixed on the two newly advanced nascent soul elders, their gazes filled with ill intent. As for Yingzi, no one worried about him spreading the word. This man was wholeheartedly devoted to alchemy, having long since severed all worldly attachments. Immediately, the two newly advanced nascent soul elders turned pale, one of them swearing a solemn oath to heaven. The other, seeing this, also hastily swore an oath. A hint of killing intent flashed in Lu Fei's eyes. He glanced at Taiyan, who nodded slightly. Lu Fei chuckled, nodding and saying, "That's very good. You to follow me. I have some insights about nascent soul cultivation that I hope will be helpful to you." The two were overjoyed and quickly followed. However, one of them seemed to walk more slowly, his eyes revealing a hint of worrying. At this moment, Liu Fei and the others smiled and took 2 steps forward. Those who felt anxious gritted their teeth and followed Liu Fei to the west courtyard. These two newly appointed elders did not appear again. However, Liu Fei was accompanied by 2 puppets, their bodies shrouded in black mist. Wang Lin entered the building, sat beside Li Muwen's bed, and quietly gazed at her sleeping face. After a long while, Wang Lin softly said, "As long as you form a core, you can increase your lifespan. This is not difficult." A month passed in the blink of an eye. During that month, all the low-level disciples of the Cloud Heaven sect had forgotten the events of the previous month. However, everyone was curious why the sect master had announced his seclusion. Liu Fei and Songqing took over the management of the Cloud Heaven sect. As time passed, the golden age of the Cloud Heaven sect gradually returned. Because many sects in the Chu Kingdom were annihilated, the Cloud Heaven sect seized the opportunity to strike. Therefore, they not only became the leading sect in the Chu Kingdom, but their power expanded several times over. As for Wang Lin, the day after Li Yuan woke up, he took her and left. Lu Fei and Taiyan also followed. These two resolutely abandoned their identities as Grand Elders of the Yantia sect, deciding to follow Wang Lin solely because of his potential for achieving godhood. Wang Lin and Li Muan traveled through more than half of the Chu kingdom, laughing and chatting. Li Muan, who had never been happy before, was very content these past few days. Her face was always radiant, like a little wife accompanying Wang Lin. Finally, they stopped when they reached a mountainous area near the remaining immortal relics in the Chu kingdom. The vicinity was deserted, with the nearest village tens of thousands of miles away. In a valley, Wang Lin patted his storage bag, and a pagoda flew out and landed in the valley. This was a cold Andean region of the Chu kingdom. Wang Lin clearly remembered Zhou Yi saying that only in places of extreme cold could the treasure pagoda be released. The pagoda, formed from condensed immortal jade, instantly grew larger, eventually becoming a massive tower about 100 feet tall. With a resounding bang, it descended into the valley. Immediately, a circle of ripples spread out in all directions. A ray of thought from Qi, a cultivator at the peak level, enveloped the area within 100 miles. Lu Fei and Tai Yin, standing within the ripples, instantly felt as if they were facing divine power. Their nascent souls felt an overwhelming pressure, threatening to shatter. However, with a wave of Wang Lin's hand, this feeling vanished. The two took a deep breath, their gazes towards Wang Lin filled with even greater reverence. "What is this?" Li Muan asked, her beautiful eyes widening in astonishment as she looked at the pagoda. Wang Lin smiled and said, "Inside the pagoda lies the body of a young woman, the wife of a senior. Before he died, he entrusted me with her care." Afterward, Wang Lin recounted the story of Zhou Yi and Dinger to Li Muan. Li Muan, being a sentimental person, was deeply moved by Zhou Yi and Dinger's story. Senior Zhou Yi's soul went to the Great Luo Sword sect. "I wonder what the outcome was," Li Muan said softly. Wang Lin remained silent for a long time, then shook his head and said, "Whatever the outcome, it was his choice. I hope he can find peace." Li Muan nodded, her gaze now fixed on the pagoda. Below the pagoda, Wang Lin had built several houses using mountain stones, with Li Muan happily assisting. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan, a slight smile appearing on his lips. "From today onwards, this will be our new home." Li Muan wiped the sweat from her forehead, placed the last stone, and smiled at Wang Lin. Wang Lin nodded, seeing Li Muan's weary expression. He felt a pang of pain in his heart. In truth, with his magical power, he didn't need Li Muan's help at all. But Li Muan insisted, a kind of persistence rarely seen in her. Li Muan's temperament was always gentle, even somewhat weak. But within that weakness lay an unimaginable perseverance. Wang Lin could only agree without saying anything more. He could sense that Li Muan was very happy. When her eyes looked at him, they revealed a tenderness and a hint of longing. That gaze, aside from that longing, was exactly like a mother's gaze towards his father, and also like Zhou Yi's gaze towards Dinger. Wang Lin used his spiritual power to heal Li Muan's body. Watching her slowly fall asleep, he quietly left the stone house. At this moment, the bright moon rose high. Lu Fei and Tai Yin were sitting cross-legged, and upon seeing Wang Lin come out, they stood up. "Sect Master." Wang Lin glanced at the two of them and said in a low voice, "How many years have you two been stuck at the late nascent soul stage?" Lu Fei and Tai Yin were overjoyed. They had followed Wang Lin to improve their cultivation and potentially reach the nascent soul stage. However, for over a month, Wang Lin hadn't said anything about it. They didn't dare ask, only waiting in silence. Lu Fei suppressed his excitement and respectfully said, "I have been stuck at the late nascent soul stage for 143 years. Tai Yin took a deep breath and respectfully said, "I have been stuck at the late nascent soul stage for 172 years. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he glanced at them, shaking his head and saying, "You've taken the wrong path." Lu Fei and Tai Yin remained silent for a long time. Tai Yin smiled bitterly and said, "Sect Master, the Chu Kingdom has never had a nascent soul cultivator. We've also asked the envoy, but we've never received an answer. In fact, many years ago, I suspected that arduous cultivation and seclusion might not be enough to reach the nascent soul stage, but I didn't know the crucial point. My junior brother Lu and I have been studying for a long time, and we can only guess that it depends on personal comprehension." Wang Lin sighed softly, looking at the back of the stone house, and said, "Every cultivator at the God transformation stage has a period of personal enlightenment about the ruthlessness of the heavenly Tao. We are comprehending the heavenly Tao, but we need a period of emotional impact, at least enough to move you. The spiritual power in your bodies is quite abundant, and the 100-mile radius of the pagoda is the best place to temper and compress it. Go out 100 miles, and when you can reach 3 miles with your own cultivation, return here. The bodies and minds of the two trembled, as if they had understood something. One went east, the other south, and went out 100 miles to sit cross-legged and contemplate Wang Lin's words. After they left, a wisp of Zhou Yi's consciousness spread out within a 100-mile radius. Time flew by, and these days, Wang Lin only focused on treating Li Muan's physical condition. Li Muan raised her hand to wipe the sweat from Wang Lin's forehead, lowering her voice and saying, "I know my body isn't doing well. It's all right." Wang Lin shook his head. Currently, his treatment of Li Muan's body, compared to once a day a month ago, had increased to 3 times every 2 days. The increasing number of treatments indicated that Li Muan's condition was constantly deteriorating. "You won't die," Wang Lin said seriously. Li Muan nodded slightly, a beautiful smile blooming on her face, silently gazing at Wang Lin as if she could never get enough of looking at him. Wang Lin touched his nose and smiled, saying, "I forgot to give you this. This is a gift I bought for you." After saying that, he took out several jade slips from his storage bag. Li Muan covered her mouth and chuckled softly, accepting the items. She glanced at them and was immediately surprised, happily saying, "5th grade spiritual elixir formulas, these are all very precious things." Wang Lin smiled and said, "Didn't you take your alchemy furnace with you when you left? You can try these formulas when you have time." Li Muan's eyes lit up. "I still haven't asked you, how did your appearance change? And how did you become Zheng Niu?" Li Muan's beautiful eyes looked at Wang Lin and smiled. Wang Lin meticulously recounted his 100-year history, causing Li Muan to listen with wide eyes. "If Hongdai knew you were Zheng Niu, she would probably come looking for you immediately," Li Muan said worriedly. A glint of light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes, and he calmly said, "Hongdai, with my current cultivation level, I can reach the mid-stage of the God transformation realm in just a few more years. If you come, I'm 7 parts certain I can make you retreat." "I still remember the cave in the cultivation demon sea before, Wang Lin. I want to go back and see. And the fire-burning kingdom. I want to see that too," Li Muan said, looking at Wang Lin. "Okay, the refining pavilion in the cultivation demon sea will be auctioning off a 6th grade medicinal formula in a few days. I'll take you to buy it." Wang Lin nodded. "Yes," Li Muan smiled happily. Looking at Li Muan's smile, Wang Lin felt a pang of pain in his heart. He gazed intently at Li Muan. Li Muan's small, beautiful face gradually flushed red. "I won't let you die, absolutely not." Wang Lin said each word clearly. Li Muan nodded gently. At night, after Li Muan had gone to sleep, Wang Lin stood outside the stone house, gazing up at the bright moon in the sky, his eyes filled with sorrow. Li Muan's body had shown some improvement under the influence of spiritual power. But how could a human being change the power of the heavenly Tao's cycle of reincarnation? The death aura around her grew stronger. Only by forming a nascent soul can she increase her lifespan. However, with such a weakened body, she can't possibly succeed. Wander's lifespan is over. Even if I extract her soul, it will be very difficult to possess her body. And like Wang Zhuo back then, whose cultivation reached the nascent soul stage and whose powerful consciousness gave him a chance to escape the heavenly Tao, I must obtain the 6th grade spiritual elixir this time. Perhaps the 6th grade spiritual elixir can restore Wander's body somewhat. Once her body recovers, I can help her form a nascent soul. I owe her too much these past years." Wang Lin stared blankly at the sky. After a long while, his figure swayed slightly, and a feeling of loneliness slowly enveloped him. He sighed softly, but his eyes showed determination as he slowly sat down. He remained silent for a long time, touching the beast-taming scroll on his wrist. He waved his hand, and a green light flew out from within, transforming into a frog that landed on the ground. The frog's breath was faint, its body covered in wounds, almost only able to exhale. Wang Lin flipped his right hand, revealing a bottle of pills. He took out a pill and put it into the frog's mouth, using his spiritual power to help it digest. For the past few days, he had given this frog a pill almost every day. The pills were spiritual pills refined by Yingzi, originally intended for Li Muan. However, after consuming many of them, Li Muan's body had lost its effectiveness. After all, her weakened body was due to old age, not injury. After consuming the elixir, the frog's condition improved. Wang Lin used his right hand to cast a spell, trapping it within the beast-taming scroll. At this moment, removing the seal between the frog and the beast-taming scroll would only lead to its death. Therefore, Wang Lin did not remove it. Wang Lin turned to look at the stone house. After a quick glance, he potted his storage bag, took out a precious sword belonging to a disciple of the Great Luo sword sect, and carefully studied it. The restrictions on the sword were different from those Wang Lin had learned. He had finally uncovered some secrets through his research over the past few days. A night slowly passed, the bright moon in the sky gradually faded and finally disappeared. The first ray of sunlight rose from the east. Throughout the night, Wang Lin had used 9 restrictions to attack the Forbidden's banner. The number of restrictions attacking the Forbidden's banner had increased to 145. However, the distance to 990 restrictions was still very far. 3 days later, Wang Lin and Li Muan left the valley. Taiyan and Lu Fei also followed behind. Wang Lin's pagoda was not retrieved but placed inside the cup. Unless a cultivator at the peak level entered, no one on the entire Vermilion Bird Star could take this pagoda away. At the border of the Chu Kingdom, Wang Lin opened an ancient teleportation array, taking Li Muan, Lu Fei, and Taiyan away. Lu Fei and Taiyan once again felt Wang Lin's power. They had lived for so many years, but this was the first time they had experienced the power of an ancient teleportation array. In the Cultivation Demon Sea, an ancient teleportation array bordering the fire-burning kingdom suddenly flashed with a bright light. After the light dissipated, 4 people emerged. Among the 4 were 3 men and 1 woman. The 2 in front were a man and a woman, obviously a couple, while the 2 behind were likely their guards. It's been many years since I returned here, Wang Lin. First, let's go see that Azure Dragon Great Array. I wonder how many of those people from back then are still alive. Li Muan sighed softly, saying, "The Azure Dragon formation." Wang Lin looked into the distance. He remembered that Li Muan had given him a jade slip years ago that contained this very formation. The group slowly flew over the outer region of the Cultivation Demon Sea, arriving at the evil fighting sect near Nando City. Before them was a huge mountain, its peak transformed into the shape of a dragon by magic. At first glance, the entire mountain seemed to be surrounded by a giant dragon. However, this dragon was now incomplete, with many broken parts. The dragon's head looked as if it had been split in 2. Li Muan stood silently watching the dragon from afar. Wang Lin sighed inwardly. Earlier, his divine consciousness had swept over the area, and the evil fighting sect had now become a pile of ruins. There were no cultivators inside, only a few low-level demonic beasts gathered. Wang Lin, do you still remember the first day you brought me here? Muan said softly. Wang Lin nodded and said, "Time passes, the scenery remains, but the people are gone. I wonder if that cave dwelling from back then still exists," Li Muan said, turning her head to look in the direction of the old cave dwelling. Wang Lin smiled, his right hand around Li Muan's waist. Their bodies instantly transformed into a rainbow and disappeared from the spot. Lu Fei and Taiyan hurriedly followed, their divine senses spreading out in silent vigilance. After all, this was the Cultivation Demon Sea, not the state of Chu. Lu Fei followed Wang Lin and Li Muan from a distance, sighing, "I heard rumors that Elder Li once lived in the Cultivation Demon Sea, and seeing it today, it's indeed true." Taiyan said in a low voice, "I'm afraid this is where the sect master knew Elder Li, Brother Lu. Your cultivation seems to have improved these past few days." Lu Fei smiled and said, "I can only go 100 feet in. I still have a lot to work on." Taiyan remained silent, not saying a word. He could only advance about 50 yards. Deep down, he resolved to dedicate himself entirely to cultivation upon his return, striving to advance within 3 miles as quickly as possible. Wang Lin, embracing Li Muan, transformed into a rainbow streaking across the sky, emitting a whistling sound. The sound carried far, terrifying the cultivators outside the demonic sea. Before long, Wang Lin and Li Muan arrived at the cave dwelling from before. However, it was regrettable that the mountain range where the cave dwelling had once stood had vanished. The scenery remains, but the people are gone. A hint of gloom appeared in Li Muan's eyes. After hundreds of years, the cave dwelling is gone, and the memories of the past have vanished with it. The death aura around Li Muan suddenly intensified. She bit her lower lip and lowered her voice to Wang Lin, saying, "Let's go." Water doesn't want to go to the fire-burning kingdom. After we buy the medicine, let's go home. Lu Fei and Taiyan stood behind them, sighing inwardly, remaining silent. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan and said, "The cave hasn't disappeared." Having said that, he waved his right hand, and the power of a nascent soul cultivator emerged from his body. A rumbling sound suddenly echoed in the air. At the same time, the ground all around cracked with a series of cracking sounds. Immediately afterward, a massive force suddenly appeared as Wang Lin waved his right hand. The cracks in the ground grew larger and larger, eventually forming a vortex that rose higher and higher. Almost in an instant, a mountain appeared. This mountain was exactly like the mountain Wang Lin had lived on years ago. The mountain rising from the ground caused the earth to shake violently. This tremor immediately startled all the cultivators within tens of thousands of miles. Some of the high-level cultivators guarding the area flew over. Gradually, more and more cultivators approached. However, they didn't dare to rush forward, instead standing 1,000 miles away, gazing in awe at the mountain that had suddenly appeared. The mountain abruptly rose from the ground. Wang Lin lightly tapped his right finger, and immediately a cave dwelling formed in the middle of the mountain. Under Wang Lin's control, this cave dwelling was indistinguishable from the one from years ago. "Water, the cave dwelling hasn't disappeared." Wang Lin turned to look at Li Muan. Li Muan looked at the cave dwelling in surprise and smiled. The smile caused the death aura around her to fade somewhat. Inside the cave dwelling, Li Muan was like a mischievous little girl, jumping around, constantly looking around, and sometimes pulling Wang Lin aside to recount old stories. "Before, I waited here for you for 3 years. I didn't expect that after 3 years you would return with a group of people," Li Muan said with a smile. "Also, that day after you returned, you unexpectedly brought a dragon with you." "A dragon?" "Before, I always wanted to ask you how you caught it, but your expression was icy cold then, so I didn't dare ask." Li Muan looked at Wang Lin with extremely gentle eyes. Wang Lin touched his nose and smiled without saying anything. After staying in the cave for 3 days, Li Muan left with lingering feelings. Wang Lin's right hand formed a hand seal and cast a restriction on the mountain. Then he and Li Muan flew together towards the Demon Rebellion City. Wang Lin had a relatively pleasant trip to the Demon Rebellion Sea. The death aura on Li Muan's body didn't intensify, but rather diminished slightly. Using the ancient teleportation array, 8 days later, Demon Rebellion City was in sight. After handing over the spirit stones to enter the city, Lu Fei immediately found an inn, and the 4 of them checked in. When Taiyan was younger, he had traveled through the cultivation demon sea, so he was a little more familiar with it than Lu Fei. Following Wang Lin's instructions, he went to the refining pavilion, now holding an invitation card. "Sect Master, the auction is in 7 days. This is the invitation card." Taiyan respectfully handed the invitation to Wang Lin. For 7 days, Wang Lin and Li Muan strolled throughout the Demon Reversal City. Li Muan was very happy these days. In fact, apart from the carefree days she lived at Luo Sect years ago, these were the happiest days of her life. 7 days later, the Refining Pavilion's 10-yearly auction began. At this time, in a 3-story palace-shaped pagoda in Demon Reversal City, the first floor was almost completely full, with most cultivators having gathered there. As Wang Lin and his 3 companions entered, 2 Foundation Establishment stage disciples of the Refining Pavilion respectfully received their invitations at the door, then led them into the main hall. 2 months ago, when Wang Lin purchased the medicinal formula, the person who received him was a middle-aged man. At this moment, that man was also in the main hall, chatting and laughing with several familiar cultivators. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and upon seeing Wang Lin, his expression changed. He quickly greeted the cultivator beside him, took a few quick steps, and when he was about 3 meters in front of Wang Lin, he said with extreme respect, "Senior, your presence is truly an honor for us, Senior. It's chaotic here. Please follow me to the 3rd floor." The knowledgeable cultivators around were astonished. It should be known that this middle-aged man held a high position in the Refining Pavilion, with a bright future ahead, and he didn't usually show such great respect when making acquaintances. The scene before them was truly rare, so all eyes turned towards Wang Lin and his companions. Upon seeing them, everyone was immediately shocked. In their eyes, Wang Lin's cultivation level was like that of an ordinary person with no spiritual power. But to be able to reach this place, how could he be an ordinary person? As for Li Miyuan, who was beside Wang Lin, she was only at the core formation stage, and her body seemed extremely weak. What truly terrified everyone were Lu Fei and Taiyan. Both were late-stage nascent soul cultivators. Even in the cultivation Demon Sea, late-stage nascent soul cultivators were rare. At least, among those present in the main hall, fewer than 5 had reached this level. Such cultivators were figures who could shake the surroundings with a single stomp of their foot anywhere in the cultivation Demon Sea. But that was one thing. Judging from the positions of the 2 late-stage nascent soul cultivators, they were clearly attendants of the seemingly ordinary young man. How could everyone not be shocked? Adding to that the politeness of the middle-aged man from the refining pavilion, the young man's status and everyone's eyes instantly rose countless times. Under the careful guidance of the middle-aged man, Wang Lin and his group ascended to the 3rd floor. The entire 3rd floor only had 3 rooms. Each room was furnished with a touch of luxury. At this moment, 2 of those rooms were occupied. Wang Lin and his companions were in a room on the right. The middle-aged man who greeted them briefly, seeing Wang Lin's impatience, quickly stood up and excused himself. After he left, his back was drenched in sweat. He took a deep breath and hurried away. That day, after Wang Lin left, he had questioned the old man who followed him. The old man's cultivation had obviously reached the late nascent soul stage, yet he felt a sense of fear under Wang Lin's gaze. This level of cultivation, except for the legendary transformation god stage, the middle-aged man couldn't think of any other explanation. Transformation god cultivators in the cultivation Demon Sea were those no one dared to provoke. The refining pavilion only managed to stand firm in the cultivation Demon Sea and develop to its current scale because of a transformation god stage cultivator. The moment his gaze fell upon Wang Lin, he immediately lowered his own status without hesitation. He mocked himself for his own insignificance, realizing he had absolutely no standing in the other man's eyes. He hurried downstairs, stopping outside an elegant room on the 2nd floor, and whispered, "Disciple Suluo has an important matter to report to the ancestor." "Come in," a gentle, melodious voice echoed from within the room. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and entered. After a while, he emerged, his expression returning to normal. He went down to the 1st floor and chatted pleasantly with several cultivators he had good relationships with. However, when these people inadvertently or intentionally inquired about Wang Lin and his group's identities, he evaded the question, smiling without answering. At this moment, a white-haired old man sitting cross-legged and meditating in a cave beneath the plains tens of thousands of miles away from the Demon Rebellion City suddenly opened his eyes. He pointed his right hand into the air, and immediately a blurry image appeared before him. Slowly, the image solidified, transforming into an extremely beautiful girl. Her appearance was breathtaking, and her figure was exceptionally rare. After the girl respectfully spoke a few words and bowed to the old man, the blurry image vanished. A nascent soul cultivator, the white-haired old man murmured, his eyes flashing briefly before disappearing. This person was indeed the old man riding the beast tamer whom Wang Lin had met when he was in the core formation stage. And also the person Wang Lin had encountered outside the Shattered Star Chaos when he returned to the ancient god's territory for the 2nd time. In the room on the 3rd floor, disciples of the Refining Pavilion brought in specialty fruits from the cultivation Demon Sea. Sitting there, one could see a raised platform in the middle of the 1st floor hall, the location of the auction that would take place in a few minutes. Wang Lin and Li Miyuan spoke softly. Li Miyuan occasionally revealed a joyful smile, her eyes filled with love and satisfaction as she looked at Wang Lin. Lu Fei and Taiyan sat cross-legged with their eyes closed by the door. Along the way, they had received guidance from Wang Lin, and their cultivation had become even more diligent, almost seizing every moment to improve their cultivation. According to Wang Lin, only by completely unifying the mixed spiritual power within their bodies could they attempt to comprehend the transformation into divinity realm. However, although both of them were in the late nascent soul stage, they hadn't reached the great perfection stage after so many years. To achieve the god transformation stage, unless something extraordinary happened, they could only attempt to break through step by step to reach the great perfection stage. Since following Wang Lin, their belief in achieving god transformation had never been greater. In fact, although their lifespans were longer than Li Muan's, they weren't much longer. If they couldn't achieve God transformation within 100 years, they would simply return to dust. That was one of the most important reasons why they were determined to follow Wang Lin. At this moment, a divine consciousness from the third floor suddenly swept across the room. Lu Fei and Taiyan opened their eyes wide and let out a soft snort. Lu Fei's divine consciousness immediately spread out, colliding with the attacking divine consciousness. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the room on the left, and the consciousness instantly vanished. Throughout, Wang Lin didn't lift his head, still softly conversing with Li Muan. He knew that in recent years, he had spent very few days with Li Muan. For Li Muan, besides love, Wang Lin felt mostly remorse. Another wave of consciousness emanated from the room on the left, clearly a combined wave of consciousness from several people. Taiyan's eyes flashed as he unleashed his combined consciousness, clashing forcefully with Lu Fei's. What audacity! I'd like to see who's so arrogant. A cold snort came from the room on the left. Under this snort, Lu Fei and Taiyan's consciousness instantly dissipated, but neither of them was injured. They merely sneered. Sect Master, this person's cultivation isn't at the nascent soul stage. It's just that he's been in the late nascent soul stage longer than us. He's probably at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. As Lu Fei finished speaking, a man emerged from the room on the left. He wore a purple robe, his hair was graying, and he exuded an aura of authority without anger. Striding quickly towards Wang Lin's room, he felt a surge of anger. His disciple had seen Suluo from the refining pavilion personally leading someone into the third floor and, out of curiosity, had used his divine sense to investigate. Unexpectedly, the other party had shattered his divine sense, nearly injuring him, which had angered him greatly. The old man took a few steps towards Wang Lin's room, lifted the curtain, and peered inside. But at that moment, Wang Lin raised his head and coldly glanced at the man. Their eyes met, and the old man immediately recoiled 3 steps, his forehead covered in sweat. Just that glance had nearly shattered the nascent soul within him. He reacted instantly. That young man was definitely a nascent soul cultivator. The old man inwardly groaned. If he had known earlier, he would never have bothered to approach a nascent soul cultivator. But at this moment, he didn't dare move, only bowing bitterly and saying, "This junior didn't know senior was here." "I apologize for any offense." Wang Lin's gaze fell into contemplation. He felt a sense of familiarity upon seeing the person, confirming it was an acquaintance from his time in the cultivation Demon Sea. However, too much time had passed, and he couldn't immediately recall. Just then, a long laugh suddenly echoed from outside. Immediately afterward, the white-haired old man with the beast tamer from the refining pavilion came up to the third floor. He didn't even glance at the old man in purple, but stood before Wang Lin's door, smiling and saying, "I heard that a nascent soul cultivator is attending our pavilion's auction this time. I was delighted to meet you, but I didn't expect it to be an old friend." As they were talking, the curtain automatically lifted, and the white-haired old man leisurely entered. Lu Fei and Taiyan's expressions immediately changed, and they quickly retreated to stand behind Wang Lin. Sit, Wang Lin smiled, his expression unchanged. The white-haired old man glanced at Li Muan, then sat down beside him and said with a smile, "It's been years since we parted, and you're still as healthy as ever. I wonder how many fire lines you've obtained." Wang Lin suddenly remembered. Back then, during the chaos outside the Shattered Star realm, he wore a straw hat to prevent this person from seeing his face. But unexpectedly, today he recognized him at a glance. He must have some kind of divine ability. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, and he smiled, saying, "That cave entrance was too small. I couldn't get many." The old man nodded and said, "I was also limited by the cave entrance back then and couldn't get many. However, when we went back up there a few years ago, we discovered some bundles that were several times bigger." His expression was calm, and after speaking, he looked towards Wang Lin. He felt a little apprehensive towards Wang Lin. If he hadn't cultivated a divine ability that allowed him to assess identity based on physical appearance, he wouldn't have recognized this person as the straw-hatted man from back then. At this moment, the old man in purple outside the room felt somewhat embarrassed. He didn't dare leave and could only stand there. While the old man with white hair and Wang Lin were talking, the auction on the first floor had begun. The first items to appear were various spiritual elixirs and magical treasures, which were very popular. Li Muon sat silently beside Wang Lin, gentle and elegant, occasionally glancing at the auction below, a smile always on her lips. The old man with white hair's eyes flashed, and he said, "Fellow Taoist, you look somewhat familiar to me. Besides the time outside during the Shattered Star Chaos, have we met before?" In fact, ever since he entered the room, he had been suspicious of Wang Lin, recognizing him as the person from outside the Shattered Star Bay years ago. Wang Lin's appearance gave him a sense of familiarity, but he couldn't remember when he had met him. This phenomenon was rare even for a nascent soul cultivator. The old man with white hair was confident that if he had met the other party before, he certainly wouldn't forget. Wang Lin slightly frowned, not answering, but beckoned to the old man in purple robes standing outside the room. The old man in purple robes breathed a sigh of relief, took a few steps into the room, and respectfully said, "Junior Qiu Siping greets Senior." After saying that, he turned to the old man with white hair and repeated the same sentence. The old man with white hair simply grunted in response, a hint of displeasure flashing in his eyes. He thought to himself, "We are both nascent soul cultivators. It's fine if you don't answer my question, but why summon this nascent soul junior?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Q, it's been many years, and you haven't changed at all." Qiu Siping was immediately stunned, and even the old man with white hair's eyes flashed as he looked at Qiu Siping. Qiu Siping carefully looked at Wang Lin several times, finding him increasingly familiar. But he couldn't remember when he had met Wang Lin, so he cautiously asked, "Senior, do you know me?" Wang Lin chuckled softly. "It's been so long, I'm afraid you've forgotten. If I hadn't heard your name, I wouldn't have remembered either. Fellow Taoist Q, the two nascent souls from back then, you and I each got one. And the jade slip containing the map, do you remember?" Qiu Siping's eyes showed disbelief. He took a deep breath and exclaimed, "Wang Lin, you can actually reach the nascent soul stage." Wang Lin nodded, then looked at the old man with white hair and smiled. "Fellow Taoist who, do you remember?" The old man with white hair, his eyes flashing with fear, looked at Wang Lin. After a long while, he gave a bitter smile and said, "I figured it out. I didn't expect that the core formation cultivator from back then would have reached the nascent soul stage today." He did realize that Wang Lin and Qiu Siping were together back then. After meeting him, he immediately noticed a strange power within Wang Lin's body, vaguely resembling the legendary ultimate realm. He was tempted to forcibly take him as a disciple to see if he could extract this strange power. However, he couldn't have imagined that hundreds of years later, when he met him again, he had already reached the nascent soul stage, and his cultivation was on par with his own. His old thoughts instantly vanished into thin air. Qiu Siping was completely stunned. Memories from the past flashed through his mind, scene after scene. Wang Lin had always been superior to him. When he reached the core formation stage, he couldn't defeat Wang Lin. Even after reaching the nascent soul stage, he still couldn't defeat him. Currently, I've reached the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but when I saw Wang Lin, he had already reached the god transformation realm. The old man with white hair chuckled and said, "The events of that year were my recklessness. Please don't blame me, Taoist Wang." Then he changed the subject and said, "I wonder, Taoist Wang, what kind of magical treasure have you come to my pavilion this time?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "A 6th grade medicinal formula." The old man with white hair looked embarrassed and said, "If it were something else, I could have given it to you, but this formula is being sold by someone else. I can't help." "No problem. If we can't exchange it, I'll just auction it fairly." Wang Lin shook his head. The old man with white hair laughed heartily and said nothing more. At this time, many magical treasures and elixirs were being auctioned off in the main hall on the first floor. Soon after, Silu went up to the high platform and said loudly, "Next, we will be auctioning off an important treasure, something you all know. It is a 6th grade medicinal formula. This formula hasn't been opened during our time at the refining pavilion. It has the seller's seal on it, as you can see. 6th grade elixirs can only be refined in the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. But having the formula is a different matter. Everyone knows the true value of this item, so I won't elaborate. However, the rules have changed slightly. The lowest price must be for a top-grade spirit stone. If there's a magic treasure, our refining workshop can also determine its value on the spot. The three-tiered pagoda immediately fell silent. Many people had come to the auction specifically for this medicinal formula. Therefore, bids began to be called out. Li Nuan was a little nervous, and Wang Lin gently patted her hand. His expression remained unchanged as he looked towards the first floor. Qiu Saiping's face showed bitterness. He had come specifically for this formula and had prepared thoroughly, but now he didn't dare raise the price. Very quickly, the price was raised to 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. This price in the Cultivation Demon Sea was a huge sum of money. Over 10,000 spirit stones. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He didn't have more than 10,000 high-grade spirit stones in his bag, but even a single top-grade spirit stone was priceless. He could easily outbid everyone else. But obviously, one stone wouldn't be enough. He'd use several if necessary. Although it's possible to exchange it for the medicine, the cost would be considerable. Of course, it's also possible to exchange it for immortal gems. Given Wang Lin's personality, although he definitely needed this sixth-grade medicinal formula, he wouldn't directly exchange for it if it was too valuable. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then patted his storage bag and took out a carved wooden statue. This statue was one he had carved years ago, an incomplete one. Although it contained the essence of the God transformation realm, it was very faint, almost imperceptible, yet it possessed the strength of a late-stage, nascent soul cultivator. Furthermore, it contained some blood meridians, making the statue a usable puppet. This kind of magical artifact was extremely important to cultivators in the demonic cultivation sea. The old man with white hair's eyes flashed as he looked at the carved wooden statue with apparent interest. What he cared about wasn't its power, but the method of its creation. The chair-refining sect became famous through chair-refining. The old man with white hair's chair-refining method was naturally not inferior. With a single glance, he recognized the extraordinary nature of the wooden statue. Not only was there a faint, almost imperceptible trace of the divine transformation realm, but the flow of blood meridians was also exquisitely skillful. However, he felt that the blood meridians within seemed familiar, as if he had encountered them somewhere before. Wang Lin threw the carved wooden statue down, saying, "Let's use this as the price." Su Luo, still paying attention to the third floor, immediately jumped up upon seeing the statue. After catching it, he respectfully said yes, and handed it to several artifact appraisers nearby. Upon seeing the statue, the appraisers' expressions changed, and they began discussing in hushed tones. The old man with white hair pondered for a moment, then suddenly his gaze narrowed, and he looked at Wang Lin, saying, "Fellow Taoist, are the blood meridians in that wooden statue the ice and snow puppet technique of the Snow Domain Kingdom?" Wang Lin glanced at the old man with white hair. Wang Lin was somewhat surprised that the old man could recognize the Snow Region Kingdom's method. But upon closer consideration, this person had been in the nascent soul stage for many years, and as the head of the refining pavilion, his extensive knowledge wasn't surprising. Just as Wang Lin nodded, several appraisers looked up, one of them saying in a low voice, "We've never seen this before, but we can confirm its effect is similar to a late-stage, nascent soul puppet. Its price is 5,000 high-grade spirit stones." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone on the first floor turned their gaze towards the wooden statue, simultaneously glancing up at the third floor. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows. The value of this item was definitely more than 5,000 spirit stones. The old man with white hair also furrowed his brows, letting out a soft hum as if transmitting a message. The appraisers couldn't see the object itself, but with his cultivation, he immediately recognized its value. Needless to say, the mere presence of the blood meridians within it was enough to significantly increase its value, not to mention the trace of the nascent soul realm it contained. For a sixth-grade medicinal formula already valued at over 10,000 spirit stones, 5,000 spirit stones was clearly insufficient. Wang Lin's gaze remained calm as he glanced towards the door of the room. Before long, an exceptionally beautiful girl ascended from the second floor. She stood at the door, respectfully bowed to Wang Lin, then entered the room, placed down a purple jade slip, and withdrew. "Fellow Taoist, I'll buy that puppet of yours. This purple jade slip can be exchanged for 20,000 high-grade spirit stones at any of our refining pavilion shops," the white-haired old man said. Wang Lin smiled, not even glancing at the jade slip, and instead called out loudly towards the first floor. "I bid 20,000 top-grade spirit stones." As soon as the words were spoken, they echoed, and at the same time, a woman's voice rang out from the central room on the third floor. 30,000 top-grade spirit stones. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows. At this moment, Qiu Saiping gritted his teeth and whispered, "Brother Wang, I still have 4,000 top-grade spirit stones." "No need." Wang Lin's voice was calm. 30,000 top-grade spirit stones was a huge amount even in the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. After a long time, no one raised the price, and finally, the 6th grade formula was snatched up by the person in the central room. After all, although the 6th grade formula was rare, the materials for refining the elixir had mostly disappeared, so 30,000 spirit stones was naturally an exorbitant price. Of course, if it were a finished 6th grade elixir, then it would be different. The old man with white hair shook his head slightly, stood up, and left. He didn't take the purple jade slip, leaving it on the table. "Let's go." Wang Lin stood up, retrieved the jade slip, his expression unchanged. However, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. After returning to the inn with Li Muan, he went downstairs. "Wang Lin, that prescription isn't anything special. Besides, we don't even know what kind of medicine is written in it," Li Muan said softly from inside the room. Wang Lin smiled and said, "Wait here for me. I must have that prescription." Li Muan hesitated for a moment, then nodded gently. Wang Lin glanced at Lu Fei and Taiyan and said, "You to stay here and guard." Lu Fei and Taiyan immediately replied, "Yes." Wang Lin's figure moved forward and instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was outside the demon inversion city. His divine consciousness swept across the area, and his figure disappeared again, then reappeared on a cliff more than 3,000 miles away. At this moment, on the cliff stood a woman in a green dress with a white silk veil covering her face. Behind her stood an old man. The old man's gaze was calm, and there seemed to be no spiritual energy fluctuations within his body. The moment Wang Lin appeared, the old man's eyes flashed, emitting countless rays of light. "Junior Qian Hong greet Senior." The voice of the woman in green was extremely pleasant to the ear, and after seeing Wang Lin, her gaze remained calm. "You brought me here. If you don't tell me the reason that satisfies me, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Wang Lin's expression remained indifferent. The woman in green's eyes lit up, and she smiled charmingly, saying, "Senior's intellect is extraordinary. I greatly admire you." This girl was also on the third floor, naturally aware of everything that had happened there. Knowing that Wang Lin was a nascent soul cultivator, yet seeing him bid 20,000 spirit stones and then unexpectedly raise it by another 10,000, she naturally had a hidden agenda. Moreover, after leaving the refining pavilion auction house, she not only didn't leave completely but remained waiting here. Wang Lin immediately understood her purpose. "Don't talk nonsense." Wang Lin's voice was icy cold. The old man behind the girl in green snorted and took a step forward. Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he looked at the man, saying, "You've only just reached nascent soul stage and your cultivation isn't stable yet. Your understanding is someone else's. Step back." The old man's face darkened, but his heart trembled. He gritted his teeth and stood firm. Wang Lin glanced at the old man, flicking his right hand. Immediately, a spiritual incantation appeared from his finger. The old man's expression changed, and he immediately took out an umbrella-shaped magic treasure from his storage bag. A sound rang out, the magical artifact unfolded, emitting bursts of multicolored light. "He doesn't know his own limits." Wang Lin snorted softly. Bang! The spirit seal pressed onto the umbrella, causing a crack to appear, and the five-colored light instantly dimmed. The old man's body seemed to be struck by a powerful force, recoiling several meters, his face unusually flushed. It took him a long time to recover. Wang Lin didn't want to kill him, so his gaze turned to the girl. The girl in green showed a wary expression, remaining silent for a moment, then took a brocade box from her storage bag and held it up with both hands. Wang Lin lightly flicked his right hand, and the brocade box flew into his hand. He lightly tapped it, and the brocade box shattered. A jade slip flew out from inside. He held the jade slip, concentrated his mind, and recorded the information. Then he threw the jade slip to the girl, saying, "Tell me the reason you've drawn me here." The girl in the green dress received the jade slip, took a deep breath, and said in a low voice, "Senior, Previously, I was truly reckless and had no other choice. Please, senior, could you help me this one time for this 6th grade medicinal formula? Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged. The girl in the green dress gritted her teeth and continued, I am from the Misty sect. My father is the sect leader. 20 years ago, he went into the Immortal Relic Land and has not returned since. The Immortal Relic Land is one of the 2 dangerous lands of the Vermilion Bird Star, on par with the 9 Nether Savage Wilderness. With my cultivation level, I cannot enter. Please, senior, help me go in and retrieve my father's ashes. After saying this, the girl in the green dress's eyes showed a sorrowful expression as she awaited Wang Lin's reply. No time, Wang Lin said calmly. He potted his storage bag, took out a jade slip from the old man with white hair, and threw it to the other party, saying, This jade slip is worth 20,000 high-grade spirit stones. Consider it payment for the copying. After saying that, his figure moved slightly, transforming into a rainbow and disappearing. The girl in green stared in astonishment at the direction Wang Lin had disappeared, despair in her eyes. She had originally given up all hope, but after seeing Wang Lin on the 3rd floor, the old man beside her immediately told her that he was a nascent soul cultivator. Upon hearing this, hope was instantly rekindled in her heart. Then, seeing the old man with white hair from the refining pavilion also come to visit, she became even more certain. That's why she bought this jade slip. Her main purpose was to bring Wang Lin here. Wang Lin truly didn't have time. The medicine in that 6th grade prescription was the 6th grade returning origin pill. In fact, returning origin pills could be refined in 1st and 2nd tier cultivation nations. They were merely refining 1st and 2nd grade returning to origin pills. The effect of the returning to origin pill is simple. It can, in a short time, allow a cultivator to absorb spiritual energy from the heavens and earth several times faster. The 6th grade returning to origin pill is the same, but the speed is even more terrifying. However, it also has limitations. Each person can only consume 1 pill every 100 years. If they consume more, their body will experience a sudden surge of spiritual energy, causing it to crystallize. Afterwards, it will transform into a human-shaped crystal, with the soul sealed within. Through prolonged refining, this humanoid crystal will gradually shrink, with a certain probability of forming something close to a top-grade spirit stone. In ancient times, true top-grade spirit stones were not naturally obtained except by the heavens and earth. There was no way to obtain them, so their quantity was naturally not very large. Therefore, due to the high-grade origin returning pill, top-grade spirit stones in ancient times were actually formed in this way. However, the probability was not high. That type of top-grade spirit stone could be considered close to the ultimate. After reading the description in the prescription, even with Wang Lin's composure, he couldn't help but lose his calmness. This method was too cruel. An idea suddenly struck him. According to the description in the prescription, that type of top-grade spirit stone contained an extremely faint bloodline that could only be detected by those who had reached the god transformation realm. He potted his storage bag, took out his top-grade spirit stone, and carefully examined it. Unexpectedly, among the top-grade spirit stones I possess, except for one, the rest all contain bloodline traces. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then his body moved slightly and he disappeared. 10 days later, outside the ancient teleportation array of the Chu Kingdom, Wang Lin and his group appeared. Using the ancient teleportation array, Wang Lin wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he felt a faint sigh, almost imperceptible, emanating from within the top-grade spirit stones as the array activated. Once again, they returned to the Immortal Relic Land in the Chu Kingdom, which remained unchanged from their departure. Lu Fei and Taiyan stopped 100 miles away and continued to sit down, refining their spiritual power, striving to reach the great perfection stage as soon as possible. Wang Lin's life returned to normal. Every day he treated Li Muwan's body, while Li Muwan studied the 6th grade medicinal formula. Many of the medicinal herbs in the formula were gone, and Li Muwan's job was to find replacements. She wasn't afraid of death, but she didn't want to leave Wang Lin. To be with Wang Lin, her entire focus was on this formula. Whenever she looked up at Wang Lin, who sat with his eyes closed, her eyes were filled with longing. However, within that longing lay a deep reluctance and attachment. Li Muwan sighed softly. After a month of searching for replacement herbs, Ayangzi was summoned by Wang Lin. Unfortunately, Che Yanzi, the last 5th-level alchemist of the Yantia sect, had died many years ago from a failed nascent soul stage. Otherwise, the three of them working together on the formula would have been much faster. Yangzi was a madman when it came to alchemy. His entire life revolved around alchemy. At this moment, seeing the 6th grade elixir formula was like finding his long-held dream, instantly driving him mad. Almost in a day and a night, he researched and replaced 137 medicinal ingredients for the 6th grade Guiyuan elixir, along with their properties and combinations. Whenever he found a replacement ingredient, Yu Fei and Songqing of the Yantia sect would immediately search for it and bring it to him. If it wasn't available within the Yantia sect, they would purchase it from major sects nationwide at a high price. If that still didn't work, they would exchange clues for the ingredient, and Lu Fei and Taiyan would go and collect it. Time flew by. 2 years later, of the 137 ingredients for the 6th grade Guiyuan elixir, only 3 remained without replacements. During these 2 years, Yangzi practically lost sleep and appetite. He forgot everything else, completely immersed in the 6th grade elixir formula. As for Li Muan, during those 2 years, her appearance slowly showed signs of aging. Her complexion was no longer white but had turned gray. During those 2 years, Wang Lin continuously used his spiritual power to treat her body, but he couldn't prevent the symptoms before her lifespan ended. Every time he saw Li Muan's face aging, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Li Muan's eyes showed even more reluctance. One night, in the drizzling rain, after Li Muan went to sleep, Wang Lin stood alone in the rain, gazing at the distant mountains, his pain growing stronger. Water's body is getting weaker and weaker. If we try to form a nascent soul, I'm afraid she will die immediately before her nascent soul even forms. Without a nascent soul, she will surely perish. Even her soul will be gone. Wang Lin stared blankly into the distance, letting out a sigh. He bent down, took a gourd of wine from his storage bag, and took a large gulp, then sat down against the stone house. This wine was fruit wine. The amount of wine in Wang Lin's storage bag was running low. Each time he drank, the image of Daniu offering him wine as a child flashed through his mind. Uncle Wang, are you going to the capital to make a lot of money and then come back to get married? I'll come back and get married when I've made a lot of money. The scene from years ago resurfaced in his heart, and Wang Lin drained the wine gourd. His eyes showed determination as he looked up at the sky. Just then, a small shout came from Yangzi's research room not far away. Immediately, Yangzi rushed out of the room. He was stunned when he saw Wang Lin in the rain. But then he quickly took a few steps forward, excitedly saying, "Sect Master, I've found replacements for the last 3 medicinal herbs." Wang Lin's eyes widened as he looked at Yangzi. Yangzi hurriedly took out a jade slip and handed it to Wang Lin, saying, "These 3 medicinal herbs are extinct, but I've found 34 more. If we combine them, they might have some effect." Although the effect won't be as strong as the originals, it's not far behind. Wang Lin took the jade slip, his divine consciousness scanning through it and immediately memorizing it. These medicinal herbs are also rare. The Cloud Heaven sect only has 4 types. I'm afraid you'd have to go to some 4th-level cultivation nations to obtain them, Yangzi said in a low voice. Wang Lin stood up, holding the jade slip in his hand. His figure flashed and disappeared. As he left, Li Muan in the stone house opened her eyes, a hint of reluctance in them. "You will never see what I look like when I'm at my loneliest. Because it's when you're not by my side and I'm at my loneliest." 2 lines of tears streamed down Li Muan's cheeks, and a few wrinkles appeared on her forehead. At this moment, she looked 10 years older than she did 2 years ago. This time, Wang Lin's journey didn't take long. 7 months later, he returned to Chu Kingdom with a weary expression. During those 7 months, Wang Lin didn't rest, practically traveling throughout most of the 4th-level cultivation kingdoms and some capital cities of the 5th-level cultivation kingdoms. Finally, using all sorts of methods buying, exchanging, and plundering, he collected everything he needed. In those 7 months, he went through several battles. The most dangerous ones were the 2 in the 5th-level cultivation kingdoms, one against a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator who possessed the Void Roma special kind of intent. Wang Lin fought him, and although he ultimately won, it was a narrow victory. The terrifying nature of the netherworld still filled Wang Lin with fear. Another time, he encountered a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Although his mental state was ordinary, he was on the verge of reaching the peak of nascent soul cultivation. His mental state, though seemingly unremarkable, displayed remarkable versatility. Wang Lin analyzed that even Hang Dai was slightly inferior to him. Ultimately, Wang Lin fought him to a draw. In the 7 months that followed, Wang Lin learned that Hang Dai wasn't the top nascent soul cultivator in the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. There were still some hidden masters. These individuals, though not yet at the nascent soul stage, possessed considerable strength, especially those with unique mental states. Their power was extraordinary. Returning to Chu Kingdom, Wang Lin didn't linger, but quickly headed towards the mountain valley. Inside the valley, Wang Lin's divine sense swept through, detecting that Lu Fei and Tai Yun had advanced about a mile, enduring immense pressure to refine their spiritual power. Their cultivation levels had increased slightly compared to before. Wang Lin's figure appeared outside the stone house. The moment he pushed open the door and stepped inside, his body trembled uncontrollably. In his eyes was a figure. That person had long hair, half of which was already gray and white. Wang Lin's heart ached. He took a few steps forward, standing beside Li Muan, looking at her face, once exquisitely beautiful but now appearing even older. "Waner, I've returned. I brought the medicinal herbs back," Wang Lin said in a low voice. Li Muan smiled, saying nothing, but looked deeply into Wang Lin's eyes and whispered, "Don't go any further. Stay with me. My time is running out." "You won't die," Wang Lin said seriously to Li Muan. Li Muan bit her lower lip, nodded slightly, and leaned against Wang Lin, her eyelashes trembling as she closed her eyes. Wang Lin's return immediately plunged Yangzi into the art of alchemy. Refining a 6th grade elixir was his lifelong dream. At this moment, he was like someone burning his soul. Almost all of the substitute ingredients were meticulously calculated by him over a long period. From over 100 types of ingredients, he used nearly 1,000 substitutes. The selection of these ingredients was based on the properties of each ingredient and the length of the refining process. Without solid alchemy experience, it would be impossible to refine such an elixir. Even Yangzi was meticulous. He wasn't being careless. He wasn't here for Li Muan, but purely for himself, to fulfill his own dream. He had told himself countless times he might have failed countless times in his life, but he couldn't fail now. The alchemy work continued relentlessly. Yangzi's temperament grew increasingly audacious as he practiced alchemy, sometimes even showing impatience when Wang Lin questioned him. This wasn't because he wasn't afraid of Wang Lin, but rather because his personality almost completely disregarded worldly affairs, focusing solely on his dream of refining high-grade elixirs. Wang Lin didn't take Yangzi's irritability to heart. On the contrary, he believed that among the people of the Cloud Heaven sect, only Yangzi had the potential to achieve the God transformation stage. This person lived for alchemy, and therefore could use this to comprehend the heavenly Tao and attain some kind of profound understanding. However, his cultivation remained stuck at the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm without progress. If he could reach the late stage of the nascent soul realm, then the God transformation stage wouldn't be a big obstacle for him. Days passed, and 3 years went by in the blink of an eye, yet Yangzi's alchemy was still incomplete. He seemed to be stuck at some point, his temper growing even more irritable, and occasionally his sharp, grumbling voice could be heard. Since his return, Wang Lin has been by Li Muan's side every day, watching her age, her black hair turning completely white, and her aura of death growing stronger. If it weren't for Wang Lin's continuous infusion of spiritual power into her body over the past few years, Li Muan would have long since become a skeleton. 3 more years passed, and Yangzi's alchemy had made a breakthrough. Although not yet complete, it was not far off. The fragrant scent of medicine occasionally wafted from his alchemy room. Li Muan's body was weakened to the extreme. She could no longer walk, spending her days lying silently in bed, gazing at Wang Lin. In her eyes, the reluctance grew stronger. Reincarnation is unavoidable, and time waits for no one. When will you come to take me away? My left hand holds the fleeting karmic consequences of the outer cultivation demon sea. My right hand holds 100 years of lonely solitude. Li Muan lay silently on the bed. She wore a white dress. Although her face was aged, her eyes still shone brightly. She quietly gazed at the thoughtful man before her. She wanted to forever engrave his image in her heart. For him, she couldn't clearly distinguish whether it was the love of an ordinary person or not. All that mattered was that for 100 years, his face had frequently appeared in her mind. Wang Lin held Li Muan's hand, his eyes incredibly gentle. Although his heart felt as if it were being cut by a sharp knife, bleeding, his expression remained incredibly tender. Wang Lin, last night I dreamed you smiled at me, and behind you were two very familiar people. Their figures seem to be my parents, Li Muan said softly, looking out the window. Li Muan's parents had died very early, and her brother had raised her. Wang Lin's heart ached even more. That night, Wang Lin stood outside the stone house, gazing towards Zhao Kingdom, his heart filled with turmoil. Deep within the borders of Zhao, beneath the Hangyu Mountains, a man with crimson hair and a face as cold as millennia-old ice suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened them, the entire Zhao Kingdom erupted in thunderous roars, as if a monstrous being had been born, shaking all the cultivators present. His gaze was icy, devoid of emotion. Two swirling purple dots flickered between his eyebrows. A faint purple lightning bolt moved across his body. He gently turned his head, his eyes seemingly able to penetrate the earth, slowly rising towards the distant Zhao Kingdom. He tore open the earth before him with one hand, walking towards two. Time passed. Half a year went by. Li Muan's body grew weaker, her soul flickering and on the verge of extinction. The cycle of heaven's reincarnation constantly emanated a pulling force, as if trying to drag her away from Wang Lin. Then, one day, Yangzi, holding a bright red pill, his face showing an unconcealed excitement, presented it to Wang Lin. A 6th grade spiritual elixir, Yangzi, have refined it. Yangzi said, his eyes darkening before collapsing to the ground. He wasn't dead, but his spirit was severely depleted. Holding the elixir in his hand, Wang Lin stared blankly at Li Muan, who was nearly dying, her hair graying like an old woman's. On her face, the beauty of a young girl had vanished, replaced by sorrow and grief. In these past few years, Wang Lin had watched Li Muan age little by little, transforming from a beautiful woman into a skeleton. Her previous life was mundane. This life, filled with endless sorrow, was like earth trying to fill the ocean in her heart. But the ocean was too deep, too vast. In the end, the seawater turned into tears, overflowing into two streams of hot tears. He defied fate, cultivating the Tao of reincarnation. His life was filled with ups and downs, weariness and weariness, yet his heart remained steadfast with unwavering faith. However, at this moment, though his appearance remained unchanged, his heart was increasingly transformed by the woman before him. In his eyes, the aging woman was merely an illusion. In his heart, her appearance was still the same as when they were in the outer demon sea. Her figure was still the same as when she played the zither in the state of Chu, watching him go into the distance. Wang Lin gently stroked Li Muan's face, slowly placing the medicinal pill in his hand into her mouth. The pill instantly transformed, and in a flash, a rosy hue appeared on Li Muan's face. In an instant, boundless heaven and earth spiritual power from all directions within the state of Chu surged into Li Muan's body. The stone house creaked and groaned under the weight of the rubble. A gust of wind blew, turning it into dust. Lu Fei and Tai Yin, who had been sleeping with their eyes closed, suddenly awoke, their expressions changing. At that moment, Yangzi's body was gently pushed away by a force and stopped beside them. Take Yangzi to the cloud heaven sect and wait for me. Wang Lin's voice slowly reached them. Without a word, Tai Yin embraced Yangzi and Lu Fei and quickly flew away. Only after traveling hundreds of miles did they turn to look back. Although the stone house was destroyed, Li Muan's body still floated lightly in the air. An endless surge of powerful spiritual energy poured in, her face unusually rosy, and slowly a dull, lightless golden core emerged from her dantian and flew out. As soon as the golden core appeared, all the spiritual energy immediately surged into it. Wang Lin's hands formed a series of incantations, and spiritual techniques continuously shot out from his hands, appearing on the golden core. His expression was extremely serious. Gradually, the incantations became faster and faster, and a crack appeared on the golden core. The 6th grade returning to origin pill could greatly increase the user's speed of absorbing the spiritual power of heaven and earth in a short time, thereby breaking through bottlenecks. However, Li Muan's body was very weak, and her lifespan was ending under the power of the heavenly Tao of reincarnation, making it difficult for her to persevere. Wang Lin's body moved slightly, floating in midair. He didn't look at Li Muan but raised his head to look at the sky, his face showing determination. His greatest enemy today was reincarnation. As the spiritual power of heaven and earth flowed into Li Muan's golden core, more and more cracks appeared. Gradually, a golden light shot out from the crack. Although the golden light was bright, it was not dazzling, but rather gave people a soothing feeling. At that moment, a layer of gray suddenly appeared on Li Muan's body. The gray grew thicker and thicker, almost instantly enveloping her entire body. Wang Lin's life and death intent had already enveloped Li Muan's entire being. However, compared to that gray, it was truly insignificant. That gray was invisible to ordinary people, and even many cultivators couldn't see it. Wang Lin's comprehension of the heavenly Tao of reincarnation gave rise to the life and death intent, so only he could clearly see that layer of gray energy. Only he understood what it was. It was the Tao reincarnation, the manifestation of a person about to die. Li Muan's eyes revealed deep reluctance. She lingered for a moment, glanced at Wang Lin, then looked around, sighed softly, and slowly closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. The tear slowly fell to the ground, making a faint sound. This sound, to Wang Lin's ears, was like hearing the shattering of a past life. Who knows how many years it will take for those tears to unlock memories and sorrows. The moment she closed her eyes, the color of the golden core instantly faded. The crack in the golden core suddenly widened, and a small figure resembling Li Muan from the past emerged from within. She opened her pure eyes, then immediately closed them again, following Li Muan's death. Wang Lin, I am willing to give up everything, even if all the stars in the sky fall. As long as you are by my side, your eyes in my heart are the brightest stars. Wang Lin, I am willing to give up everything, even if the cycles of reincarnation cause my soul to wither. It will not hinder me from letting you go. Wang Lin, I am willing to lose everything, even if life is lost, even if the years fade, as long as our memories never fade. Wang Lin, this is our karma. This is the choice of the heavenly Tao. In the end, we must still struggle under the heavenly Tao. If heaven decrees your death, I will take you back. Wang Lin's eyes revealed sorrow. He raised his head, his gaze resolute. Immediately, a frenzied surge of life and death intent erupted within him. In the sky above the valley, the cycle of life and death reappeared. A black and white landscape painting slowly expanded. As if an invisible giant hand were stirring, ripples appeared on the painting. As soon as the landscape painting appeared, a rumbling sound echoed throughout the entire Chu kingdom. Li Muan's body rapidly turned into a skeleton, falling from the sky and dissipating into the horizon. Her dying nascent soul was also slowly dissipating. However, in an instant, Wang Lin's cycle of life and death painting enveloped the sky, causing the dissipation of the nascent soul to slow down. Wang Lin's figure flashed, appearing in the sky. He grasped the cycle of life and death painting in his right hand and hurled it downwards. Immediately, the painting descended, enveloping Li Muan's nascent soul. At this moment, only the painting remained in the sky, revealing a bizarre scene. Red clouds filled the sky, swirling and appearing. Two beams of light, as if understanding his mind, briefly emerged from within the swirling red clouds, gazing towards Wang Lin. This strange yet familiar sight made Wang Lin tremble. But he remained steadfast, his head held high, standing in midair. Below him was the painting enveloping Li Muan's nascent soul. At this moment, Wang Lin used his understanding of life and death, his comprehension of the cycle of reincarnation and the heavenly Tao, to protect Li Muan's nascent soul from dissipating. He wanted to fight against heaven. If heaven wants you dead, I will take you back. This was a promise, and also a declaration of war. Wang Lin's duel with heaven. The crimson clouds thickened, and the two pairs of eyes slowly retreated. But immediately afterward, countless crimson clouds condensed into a gigantic hand that seemed capable of supporting heaven and earth, crashing down to seize Li Muan's nascent soul, which was entangled in the painting of life and death. Wang Lin shouted, his body flashing, grabbing the painting of life and death and flying rapidly into the distance. The enormous hand, however, seemed to transcend distance, snatching the painting from Wang Lin's hand. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he raised his head to meet the enormous hand. Bang! Wang Lin's nascent soul trembled violently. After the collision, his nascent soul was knocked out of his body a meter. But immediately, his nascent soul returned to his body, a trickle of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth as he flew away at incredible speed. At the same time, his divine consciousness frantically spread out, searching for something. The gigantic hand rose, and within the crimson clouds, the two pairs of eyes reappeared, glancing at the painting in Wang Lin's hand. Then, the enormous hand descended again. "My lord!" Wang Lin roared. The moment the enormous hand reached out, the ground shook violently. A figure with pink hair suddenly appeared, coldly striking the giant hand above. Bang! The hand was knocked back several meters, two pairs of eyes in the red clouds like lightning focusing on the figure with pink hair. The my lord's expression remained unchanged, treating the giant hand slap as if it were a gentle breeze. However, two purple points of light spun violently on his forehead. He stood shielding Wang Lin, his cold gaze fixed on the sky. The gaze in the red clouds receded, but immediately afterward, the red clouds in the sky intensified. Suddenly, countless red clouds instantly merged into the giant hand, causing the initially ethereal hand to become solid. 5 sharp claws gradually formed. The giant hand reached out once more. At this moment, as the giant hand reached out, 5 enormous facial cracks appeared, torn apart by the claws. It was as if the air itself was being ripped apart, chasing after Wang Lin. Wang Lin shouted, patting his storage bag, and immediately the Forbidden's banner appeared. It vibrated in the air, and a black spear materialized. He waved his hand, and the spear whizzed away. At the same time, the light on his forehead flashed. Suddenly, his body emitted cracking sounds, quickly transforming into a giant about 3 jang tall. His skin glowed with a faint purple light, and his body exuded a primordial aura. At this moment, his body bore subtle, almost imperceptible signs of an ancient god. His eyes blazed with fighting spirit. He shouted, stomping his foot and seizing the black spear. Bang! The spear pierced the grasping hand. A sound like the heavens and earth collapsing erupted from the sky. The spear shattered into countless fragments, transforming into numerous forbidden energies that slowly dissipated. The main body was struck by a powerful force and fell from midair. In the instant the main body fell, the ground seemed to crack, countless fragments scattering in all directions. The main body sank into the earth, stopping only after reaching a depth of 3,000 miles. A trace of fresh blood remained at the corner of the main body's mouth, but the fighting spirit in his eyes intensified. He stomped his foot and charged forward again. At this moment, Wang Lin's divine consciousness was still carefully spreading out, searching in all directions. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on a mountain village 10,000 miles away. At this moment, the enormous hand, after repelling the main body, reached out to grab Wang Lin. From beginning to end, the gaze within the red clouds remained unchanged. In a flash, Wang Lin spun around, his hands forming a hand seal, concentrating all his spiritual power on a single finger, pointing it at the palm of the other hand. Bang! Wang Lin's body was thrown far away, blood gushing from his mouth. The blood fell onto the book of life and death, slowly disappearing. At this moment, Li Muan's nascent soul, which was on the verge of dissipating, suddenly surged with renewed vitality and stubbornness. He fought against reincarnation solely for the sake of this woman's life, defying fate within reincarnation. The enormous hand reached out again. Just then, the main body emerged from underground, roaring, standing in front of Wang Lin, its right hand clenched into a fist and striking the other hand. Bang! The main body spat out a mouthful of blood, yet laughed maniacally. The enormous hand was pushed back several meters. Laughing loudly, the main body took a step forward, its right hand swinging again, relentlessly striking the other hand. The sounds of boom, boom, boom echoed continuously. With each collision, blood trickled from the corner of the Venerable One's mouth, but the fighting spirit in his eyes only intensified. I am an ancient god. I will definitely defy the will of heaven. To carry out this cycle of reincarnation, you must first destroy me. The Venerable One laughed loudly, the light at his forehead spinning wildly. At this moment, a colossal figure gradually appeared behind his body. The figure, with its head touching the sky and feet firmly planted on the ground, was not standing upright but kneeling on one knee, its head bowed, as if asleep. The Venerable One laughed maniacally, his right hand continuously striking, his body slowly rising. The enormous hand continuously retreated. Under the Venerable One's attack, the figure behind him gradually raised its head. Its eyes, within the red clouds, remained calm. It was originally a messenger transformed from the cycle of heaven, devoid of emotion. Perhaps it's simply about adhering to the cycle of reincarnation, punishing those who attempt to evade it and imprisoning them within the heavenly realm. The sheer power of the main body surpassed that of all cultivators. Without a word, Wang Lin immediately flew away at lightning speed. Finally, the arm formed by the red clouds was attacked by the main body and disappeared into the red clouds. However, in an instant, that arm shot out from within the red clouds again. This time, the arm was almost completely solidified, several times stronger than before. The hand was not open but clenched into a fist, crashing down with a thunderous roar, colliding with the main body. A deafening explosion resounded, like the heavens and earth collapsing. Many parts of the main body were destroyed, and he fell from the sky. At this moment, the figure behind the main body seemed to awaken from its slumber, raising its head. Immediately, a surging force emanated from the figure. The main body, which was falling, instantly stopped, its form involuntarily rising into the air and merging with that figure. The enormous fist ignored the figure and the main body, and struck towards Wang Lin, who was fleeing. Wang Lin's divine consciousness was aware of everything happening behind him. He gritted his teeth, increasing his speed, covering a distance of 10,000 miles in a single movement. Beneath his feet lay a village resembling a celestial paradise, with several children playing, seemingly oblivious to the earth-shattering commotion from thousands of miles away. In fact, that was true. Neither the cataclysmic scene nor the enormous hand could be seen by ordinary people. Only Wang Lin and its true form could see and feel it. The only real things were the deep pits and cracks created by his true form. However, the immense noise had barely reached this place. In this village of less than 100 people, a young woman was cooking in a house. When she looked up, her gaze towards the playing children was gentle, and she stroked her belly. Wang Lin was high in the sky, wielding the wheel of life and death, and Li Muan's nascent soul emerged from within, only to quickly vanish. A gentle expression appeared in Wang Lin's eyes as he glanced at Li Muan's nascent soul. The nascent soul transformed into a shooting star, hurtling towards the village. At that moment, a massive fist in the sky pursued, descending and striking Li Muan's nascent soul with a thunderous roar. Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he blocked it. Bang! Blood spurted from Wang Lin's mouth, his eyes turning red. His right hand trembled. 9 wooden statues appeared before him. The time and space intent suddenly manifested. The massive fist descended again, instantly shattering 6 of the statues. The fist pierced through Wang Lin, striking Li Muan's nascent soul as it entered the village. Wang Lin roared, his body flashing once more to block the fist. He didn't have time to use magic, relying only on his physical body to withstand it. Boom! Blood gushed from Wang Lin's 7 orifices, yet a smile played on his lips. His laughter grew louder and louder, eventually resembling that of a madman. You want to erase Wanner's traces and send her back to reincarnation? I, Wang Lin, will not let you have your way. The cold, cloud-like eyes in the crimson mist glared at Wang Lin, and he clenched his fist and swung it forward. Wang Lin blocked once more. At this point, his body was riddled with wounds, blood gushing from his mouth and nose. Yet, his expression was that of a lunatic. He looked up at the eyes in the crimson mist, laughing loudly. I cultivate the art of heavenly reincarnation. One day I will change reincarnation. At that time, I will make today's reincarnation work according to my will, Wang Lin's will. I will make the illusory image of today's reincarnation kneel at my feet. The eyes in the crimson mist remained calm, as if looking at an ordinary, insignificant person spouting nonsense. At this moment, Li Muan's primordial spirit had entered the house in the village, silently merging with the flesh and blood in the pregnant young woman's womb. His gaze, veiled in red clouds, swept across the village, then settled on Wang Lin. A massive fist slammed down. This fist contained a gravitational pull mixed with countless flashes of lightning. This punch was punishment for obstructing the heavenly Tao. In an instant, as the fist descended, his true form arrived. A red light suddenly shot from afar, merging with Wang Lin. Immediately, Wang Lin and his true form vanished. In its place appeared a figure about 10 feet tall with hair reaching to his feet. His left eye was like the moon, his right like the sun, his body emitting an aura that combined ancient God and the essence of life and death. At this moment, Wang Lin was no longer a cultivator, nor an ancient god, but something else, an unnamed being. His body was as powerful as an ancient god, but within him was the primordial spirit of a cultivator. Internal and external forces combined, body refinement and cultivation alternating. Wang Lin raised his head. Behind him, a figure with its head touching the sky and feet firmly planted on the earth was also looking up. Moreover, upon closer inspection, one could clearly see a towering primordial spirit extending its arms from the chest of that figure. Countless substances resembling meridians connected every part of the enormous figure. That primordial spirit was like the heart of an ancient god. Without waiting for the punch of the heavenly Tao of reincarnation to descend, Wang Lin stomped his foot and flew towards the fist. Bang! 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 Wang Lin's body was instantly knocked far away, blood gushing from his mouth. But he laughed wildly, his laughter revealing arrogance. Currently, she is reincarnating in her nascent soul form, her lifespan increasing in accordance with the rules of the heavenly Tao's reincarnation. If she doesn't cultivate, she can avoid reincarnation. 19 years later, her soul will solidify, and then you will certainly be able to come. However, I can still stop her next time. The eyes in the red cloud calmly glanced at Wang Lin before disappearing. Even the huge fist vanished. The red cloud slowly dissipated. Wang Lin flew straight to the pagoda, his body swaying and falling to the ground. His main body separated from his body, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and sat down cross-legged. After a long time, Wang Lin opened his eyes and immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, taking out elixirs to regulate his spiritual power. 3 days later, he and his main body opened their eyes simultaneously. This time, I'm seriously injured. I must go into seclusion to rest. Wang Lin thought to himself. The heavenly Tao's reincarnation transformed into an emissary from beginning to end, except for the final blow, which was a killer move. Because it inherently lacks emotion, everything is done according to rules. With the extent of Wander's nascent soul dissipation, it will roughly take 19 years for her to recover her consciousness and awaken. Once her nascent soul awakens, the cycle of heavenly Tao will inevitably return, aiming to eliminate all those who attempt to evade it. Wang Lin looked up at the sky, a fierce glint appearing in his eyes. Wang Lin stood up, and without a word, his main body immediately flew towards the deep pit on the ground where the battle had taken place. In an instant, he arrived and immediately descended. The deep pit was instantly filled with mud and earth from all sides, finally restoring its original form. Thousands of miles underground, his main body sat cross-legged with his eyes tightly closed. 2 purple points of light on his forehead slowly moved, and a faint purple aura emanated from his body, forming a purple halo around him. From afar, it looked like only a single halo of light. The Venerable One's injuries were far more severe than Wang Lin's, especially the final blow which he endured, which took 7/10 of its impact. However, given the Venerable One's physical strength, these injuries were not fatal, but secluded cultivation was unavoidable. Wang Lin took a deep breath, and with his right hand, he took a jade slip from his storage bag. After leaving a trace of his divine consciousness on it, he swung his hand and threw it forcefully into the void. The jade slip transformed into a streak of light and disappeared. Having done this, Wang Lin went near the pagoda, sat down cross-legged, and sent out a trace of Zhou Yi's divine consciousness from within the pagoda. Immediately, within 100 miles, unless there was a peak-level expert, no cultivator could enter. Thus, Wang Lin closed his eyes and healed his injuries. During the day, the dazzling sunlight shone upon Wang Lin, giving him a warmth. At night, the gentle moonlight brought a chill. On rainy days, the rain poured down from the sky, soaking his clothes in an instant. On snowy days, snowflakes fell slowly from the sky, blanketing the ground in white, and a snowman appeared beside the pagoda. Day after night, rain, wind, heat, and cold passed, but Wang Lin remained motionless. He was like a dead old monk, his body devoid of life or change. 6 months after the battle with the heavens, spring returned, and flowers bloomed. Old man Shu in Xinghua village gave birth to a baby girl, named Shu Ru. The baby girl cried from birth, but no one knew how her cry differed from that of a normal baby. The baby girl's body was very weak. Fortunately, old Shu's family in Henhou village had a good reputation and owned a general store, so their lives were much better than those of other families in the village. On a small mountain about 100 miles from Henhou village, there was a cave dwelling. Tai Yan had been sitting there for 6 months. 6 months ago, he and Lu Afia received a message from Wang Lin via a jade slip, instructing one of them to go and protect Li Muwan before he emerged from seclusion. After deliberation, Taiyan came here. Since then, his consciousness has remained focused on Henho village, silently protecting it. Wang Lin's healing continued uninterrupted, and the snow outside the pagoda had melted into water, seeping into the ground. His main body was thousands of miles underground. In the past 6 months, his body had sunk 3 times, each time several thousand miles. At this moment, his main body's location was equivalent to about 1/5 of the distance to the heart of the vermilion bird star. Ancient gods mature through battle. This saying is absolutely true. My strength has shown signs of breakthrough since this battle. Although it was a slow process, I've reached the peak of the 2nd star, and the 3rd transformation is not far off. In the blink of an eye, another half-year passed, and Chu Aryu in Xinghua village was 1 year old. Other children at this age, though unable to speak, were already babbling, but Chu Aryu had always kept her mouth shut, never uttering a sound. Therefore, the villagers rumored that she was deaf and mute. One day, outside an ordinary teleportation array on the border of Chu Kingdom, a group of people emerged. Among them were men and women, the most striking being a girl with her face veiled in white silk. The girl was graceful, her face showing signs of weariness, but her beautiful eyes shone like stars, captivating everyone. Following behind her was an old man. The old man wore a short blue cloth robe, his eyes dull and lifeless, like someone who had been ill for a long time. If Wang Lin were here, he would certainly recognize these two as the people who bought the 6th grade pill formula in Demon Reversal City that year. Beside them was a white-haired old man. This was indeed the nascent soul cultivator surnamed Hu from the refining pavilion. Behind him were 3 people, one of whom was an acquaintance of Wang Lin, Qiu Saiping. The other 2 were Suluo and a stunningly beautiful young woman, the one who had delivered the jade slip that year. After exiting the teleportation array, the white-haired old man surnamed Hu looked north and said in a low voice, "The state of Chu, although not the best route to enter the immortal realm, is easier than the state of Zhou." The young woman, veiled in white silk, nodded and respectfully said, "Senior is absolutely right. From the state of Chu to the immortal realm, although it's far, there are no checkpoints to stop us, making it much more convenient than the state of Zhou." The old man surnamed Hu moved swiftly forward, and everyone hurried to catch up. That year, after Wang Lin left, Qiu Saiping pondered for a long time before deciding to follow the old man surnamed Hu, hoping to one day reach the God Transformation realm. Over the past 10 years, his cultivation had indeed improved somewhat, but reaching the God Transformation realm was still hopeless. This time, going to the Immortal Relic Land, if he could obtain something, he believed his dream of reaching the God Transformation realm would come true. The girl in the white silk dress sighed inwardly. For 10 years, she had searched many places for God Transformation cultivators, but without success. Finally, thinking of the old man surnamed Hu of the refining pavilion, she gritted her teeth and revealed some secrets she hadn't told Wang Lin back then, which moved him and made him agree to go to the Immortal Relic Land. The 6 flew north, passing several sects without any resistance. It's been 100 years since I last came to this place. It seems things have changed a lot, the old man surnamed Hu murmured softly. He let out a surprised gasp. Behind him, Sulu respectfully said, "Ancestor." In recent years in the Chu Kingdom, the Cloud Heaven sect's power has grown significantly, continuously absorbing several sects, truly becoming a leading sect in the Chu Kingdom. The old man surnamed Hu nodded and said, "The Cloud Heaven sect focuses on alchemy. To have the strength to absorb other sects like this, it seems they have quite a few nascent soul cultivators. When you return from the Immortal Relic Land this time, remember to make arrangements and send someone to the Cloud Heaven sect to collect some necessary elixirs." Sulu nodded and smiled in agreement. He thought that the Cloud Heaven sect would surely immediately offer elixirs to pray for peace. While the 6 were flying, a column of light suddenly shot up into the distance. From here, the column of light appeared to be about the size of a child's arm. But it's important to know that from this distance, the column of light was very large. If it were closer, it would undoubtedly be countless times larger. The old man surnamed Hu turned to look at the column of light. Even with his composure, the old man was shaken at this moment. The old man standing behind the girl veiled in white silk, his eyes instantly flashing with terror as he gazed at the pillar of light. That pillar of light was indeed the central pillar of the Tongshan Tower in the state of Chu. Is this an envoy from a high-level cultivation nation descending? Even an envoy from a fourth-level cultivation nation wouldn't have such a display of power. The old man surnamed who grew increasingly terrified as he watched. He saw several golden dragons roaring and flying around the pillar of light. Immediately afterward, a young man in white slowly emerged from within the pillar of light. The moment he appeared, the golden dragons roared even louder, their voices clearly audible even to the 6 people present. Then, the golden dragons charged towards the young man in white, and upon touching him, they transformed into golden dragons imprinted on the corners of his robe. An envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. The old man surnamed who immediately showed a look of panic. He reacted almost instantly. He feared something very significant was about to happen in the state of Chu. Otherwise, how could a mere third-level cultivation country possibly send an envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom? A hint of alarm flickered in the beautiful eyes of the girl veiled in white. At this moment, the old man following her casually stepped forward and stood before her. A look of panic flashed in the girl's eyes, but her hands inside her robe were clenched tightly, sweat pouring down. Qiu Saiping, Su Luo, and the extremely beautiful young woman were also terrified. Especially Qiu Saiping, who stared blankly at the distant pillar of light, murmuring, "This is the first time I've seen someone from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom." The Vermilion Bird Kingdom. Ancestor, why would an envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom descend upon the state of Chu? The young woman asked softly, taking a deep breath. Dao Esgongsen, what do you think? The old man surnamed Ho turned his head to look towards the servant of the girl veiled in white silk. The old man was wearing a blue cloth robe. Brother Hu, I have just entered the nascent soul stage and don't know much about the affairs of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. However, I believe that the Vermilion Bird Kingdom's envoy descending upon the Chu Kingdom likely indicates that some major events unknown to us have occurred. The old man said slowly. That's unnecessary, old man Hu muttered to himself, his gaze fixed on the pillar of light. At that moment, the pillar of light gradually dissipated. However, the young man in white inside the pillar of light flew like a shooting star towards the 6 people. The girl in the white silk veil trembled, her eyes revealing extreme panic. Old man Hu immediately noticed this scene. His expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with suspicion. The rainbow-colored light moved at incredible speed, quickly reaching the 6 people. A gaze from within the rainbow swept over them. Except for the old man surnamed Hu and the green-robed servant, the others trembled and hastily bowed their heads. Unexpectedly, there are 2 nascent soul cultivators. The rainbow light dissipated, revealing the figure of a young man in white. His face was as white as jade, his features extremely handsome. He wore a white robe embroidered with 4 golden dragons, yet they looked incredibly lifelike, radiating a gentle spiritual aura. The young woman from the refining pavilion who followed the old man surnamed Hu, though bowing her head, had slightly flushed cheeks. This young man in white was the most handsome she had ever met. Where are you going? The young man in white said calmly, though his extraordinary aura was undeniably evident. Old man Hu glanced at the young man and immediately recognized his cultivation level as the peak of the early stage of the transformation god realm. He inwardly sneered, but his expression showed no sign of it. He said, "We want to go to the immortal land." The young man in white's gaze fell on the girl veiled in white, and he suddenly said, "Take off your veil." At that moment, the old man in green stepped forward, standing in front of the girl, and respectfully said, "Envoy, my young lady has ancestral teachings that she cannot easily reveal her face. I beg your forgiveness, Envoy." The young man in white's eyes froze for a moment. He pondered for a while, then waved his sleeve and flew swiftly into the distance. The 6 people were silent for a moment. A glint appeared in old man Hu's eyes, and he flew forward. He wanted to see why the envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom had come to the Chu Kingdom. As he moved slightly, Qiu Saiping, Su Luo, and the girl quickly followed. The girl veiled in white glanced at the old man beside her, gritted her teeth, and followed. The old man in the green robe sighed softly and then followed behind, protecting her. Everyone followed from a distance, only to see the young man in white still flying straight north. Unexpectedly, this direction was indeed the direction of the Immortal Relic Land. Could some treasure have appeared in the Immortal Relic Land? The old man surnamed Hu muttered to himself. At that moment, his gaze suddenly focused on a distant mountain valley. The young man in white was flying towards it. His body seemed to be struck by a powerful force, suddenly pushed back more than 10 meters, a look of fear appearing on his handsome face. The old man surnamed who stood on a cliff, the other 5 standing beside him, all watching the young man in white falling. The young man in white raised his eyebrows, his right hand patting his storage pouch, and took out a jade slip. He concentrated his gaze. The jade slip described this very place. He paused for a moment, then took a few steps forward, but immediately a terrifying aura emanated from him. The young man in white's expression changed, and he retreated a few steps. The old man surnamed whose face turned pale as he looked closely, only to see a tall tower inside the valley. Beside the tower, there seemed to be a person sitting, but that person showed no signs of life, making the old man think it was a dried corpse. The young man in white tried several times, but could not advance more than 10 miles. Finally, he stood outside the valley, his expression unreadable, clasped his hands and said in a loud voice, "I am Feng Yushan of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. I request an audience with Taoist Zhang Niu." Zhang Niu. The old man surnamed whose eyes widened in shock, his heart filled with extreme fear. His gaze involuntarily lingered on the dried corpse beneath the tower. It was understandable that he was so terrified. In recent years, the name Zhang Niu has almost become a rising star in the demon cultivation scene. Rumors about him are countless. Some say he's a secret master cultivated by the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, a leading heir to the kingdom. Otherwise, why would the Vermilion Bird Kingdom remain indifferent after severing Hong Dai's arm? That doesn't fit their usual arrogant style of doing things. Others say he's a disciple of some reclusive cultivator, possessing far superior talent than Hong Dai. Some claim he's a member of some powerful force, with cultivators far more powerful than him, which is why the Vermilion Bird Kingdom has tolerated his actions. On the other hand, there are even more extravagant rumors. It's said that Zhang Niu hasn't cultivated for even 60 years, making him even more valuable than Hong Dai in the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. Such rumors are numerous. Zhang Niu, the girl's eyes, veiled in white silk, shone brightly, her breathing quickening slightly as she thought to herself, "If Zhang Niu is willing to help me, then that great matter can succeed. Th." The old man in green beside her blinked, his eyes showing respect. "I didn't expect Zhang Niu, who is so widely rumored, to be here." Qiu Saiping took a deep breath. No wonder the envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom came to the state of Chu. Suluo's eyes showed disbelief. "I wonder what connection this Zhang Niu has with the state of Chu," the extremely beautiful girl said thoughtfully. As soon as she finished speaking, the old man surnamed who immediately showed a pensive expression and instructed, "Cancel the sending of people to Yuncha sect." Suluo was stunned and quickly replied, "Yes." At this moment, the young man in white standing outside the valley, after waiting for a while without receiving a reply from inside, frowned and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, this time I've come not because of your injury to Hong Dai, but to deliver a challenge on her behalf. I hope fellow Taoist Zhang will come out to meet me." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the 6 people on the cliff changed. The old man surnamed whose eyes flashed as he looked towards the valley. For a long time, there was still no sound from inside the valley. The young man in white was secretly angry. As a disciple of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, he had never been treated like this anywhere else. "Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't refuse the invitation and then choose to drink the punishment. No one on the Vermilion Bird Star system dares to refuse an invitation from our Vermilion Bird Kingdom." Feng Yushan's eyes darkened as he slowly spoke. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful force suddenly emanated from the valley. Immediately afterward, an invisible, large hand materialized and grabbed the young man in white. Cracking sounds emanated from the other hand, causing Feng Yushan's face to instantly flush red, sweat beading on his forehead, and his eyes to show terror. "I am an envoy from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. Zhang Niu, don't be impulsive. This time, I've only come to deliver a challenge." "Time," a calm voice slowly echoed from the valley. Feng Yushan hastily said, 3 months, on the western mountain heavenly altar of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. "How did you know I was here?" Wang Lin's voice, though faint, carried a hint of killing intent. Feng Yushan didn't hesitate and immediately replied, "I truly didn't know. This information came from Vermilion Bird Mountain. In other words, Hong Dai's sect has already gone to find you." The location of your challenge this time was also transmitted from Vermilion Bird Mountain. The old man surnamed Who on the cliff's face changed slightly. He found this voice somewhat familiar. After a moment of thought, the old man's expression suddenly changed. He turned his head and glanced at Qiu Siping, noticing that the latter's eyes also held a hint of surprise, clearly having guessed something. I don't have time. The valley fell silent for a moment. Then Wang Lin's voice echoed out. The invisible hand surrounding Feng Yushen's body dissipated, and he regained his freedom. At this moment, cold sweat drenched his back. For the first time, Feng Yushen understood the terrifying power of Zhang Niu. Before, he thought that Zhang Niu's ability to sever Hong Dai's arm was certainly due to a sneak attack or some despicable trick. But now he no longer held that thought. However, Wang Lin's reply also put him in a difficult position. He hesitated for a moment, then respectfully clasped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, this is an order from Vermilion Bird Mountain requesting you and Hong Dai to fight a battle. Normally, Vermilion Bird Mountain doesn't send any messages. In the past 100 years, there have only been 3. The first was to recruit Hong Dai as a core disciple of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. The second was to find your whereabouts. This time, it's to report your current location and also to request a battle between you and Hong Dai. According to my analysis, if you can win, you will receive great benefits. After all, 2 of the 3 messages concerned you. Tell Hong Dai that if there is a battle, it will be 10 years from now. Wang Lin's voice echoed from within the valley. Feng Yushan remained silent for a moment, then nodded with a wry smile, clasped his hands, took the challenge letter, and turned to leave. His figure transformed into a rainbow and instantly disappeared. An old acquaintance outside the valley, please come in. The moment Wang Lin's voice rang out, Zhou Yi's divine sense within 100 miles instantly dissipated. The old man guarding the Hu clan laughed heartily, his figure flashing as he entered the mountain valley. Behind him, the girl veiled in white and the old attendant followed. Qiu Siping hesitated for a moment, then hurriedly followed along with Suluo and the other person. Inside the valley before the 6 people, the dried corpse beneath the pagoda stirred slightly. Then, crackling sounds emanated from within. After a while, the corpse slowly raised its head, its eyes shining brightly. Wang Lin took a deep breath, stood up, and smiled at the 6. He waved his right hand, and a thick white mist rose from his entire body. When the mist cleared, Wang Lin, dressed in white, appeared before everyone. The dirt and grime on his body from a year of sitting there had naturally all disappeared. Wang Lin pointed his right hand at the ground, and immediately a stone table and several stone chairs appeared. Please sit. Wang Lin sat down in a chair, and with a light wave of his right hand, a tea set appeared. The old man surnamed Hu looked at Wang Lin and sat opposite him. The girl who followed him stepped forward. After greeting Wang Lin, she proactively took the tea set, took out several cups, and placed them to one side. Fellow Taoist, please sit down, Wang Lin said with a smile, glancing at the old man in the green robe beside the woman in the white silk veil. The old man in the green robe looked deeply at Wang Lin. He recognized him as the person from that year, and a complex feeling welled up in his heart. He sat down silently at the table. The others also sat down. Old man who looked at Wang Lin with a wry smile and said, I don't know whether to call you fellow Taoist Wang or fellow Taoist Zhang. Wang Lin picked up his teacup, took a small sip, and smiled, saying, a name is just a form of address. Why be so fixated on it? The woman in the white silk veil had been watching Wang Lin the whole time, her eyes revealing a complex and incomprehensible expression. She never imagined that Zhang Niu, who was as radiant as the midday sun, was this person. 10 years ago, we parted ways, and your demeanor remains unchanged. This time, accompanying Taoist Hu, it must be for the immortal realm, right? Back then, I didn't know your identity, senior. I hope you won't mind, the woman in the white silk veil said softly. A person's name carries weight. The name Zhang Niu on the Vermilion Bird Star is truly famous. Even the old man surnamed Hu was moved, let alone her. Wang Lin put down his teacup, shook his head without speaking, and looked at Qiu Siping, smiling and saying, all of you, or alone, have the potential to advance into the heavenly Tao. Qiu Siping smiled wryly. He knew that following old man Hu, he couldn't possibly deceive Wang Lin's discerning eyes, so he sighed, transforming into a god. It's too difficult. The old man surnamed who picked up his teacup, took a sip, and immediately showed a look of emotion, saying, "Brother Wang, this tea?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "This isn't tea from the Vermilion Bird Planet, but from another cultivation planet. Many years ago, during my journey to the immortal realm, I obtained it by chance." The old man surnamed who took a deep breath, looked at Wang Lin, his eyes showing a hint of hesitation, then said, "I heard that back then in the immortal realm, Brother Wang severed Hang Bai's arm. I wonder if Brother Wang obtained any immortal chad during his journey to the immortal realm." His way of addressing Wang Lin had subtly changed. Wang Lin looked at Old Man Hu and said, "Yes, I did." Old Man Hu gazed intently at Wang Lin and sincerely said, "Brother Wang, I am willing to pay any price to obtain a little bit of immortal chad. I hope Brother Wang will grant my request." Wang Lin chuckled softly and said, "There's no need to rush. Let's talk about it when you reach the nascent soul stage. I wonder what you intend to do in the immortal realm." Old Man Hu secretly thought to himself, "This Wang Lin hasn't been cultivating for long, but he's a cunning old fox." He subtly changed the subject after a casual remark. Hearing Wang Lin's question, he laughed heartily and said, "Actually, the day I ascend to the nascent soul stage is approaching, so I shamelessly came to Brother Wang to make this request. As for the immortal relocation land, this matter can only be clearly explained by Taoist Din." The girl in the white silk dress looked at Wang Lin and said, "Senior, deep within the immortal relocation land, there is a reincarnation tree. I have a map to get inside." Wang Lin calmly took a sip of tea. The young woman accompanying Old Man Hu quickly took the teapot and poured him more tea, then cleverly stood to the side, her beautiful eyes occasionally glancing at Wang Lin. Upon hearing the words reincarnation tree, Qi Ziping's eyes immediately lit up with a fiery glint. Even Su Luo was the same. The girl in white silk continued to gaze at Wang Lin, noticing that after hearing the three words reincarnation tree, his expression remained unchanged. Just like Old Man Hu's expression years ago when he heard the name of this tree. She couldn't help but inwardly sigh at Wang Lin's profound cunning and resourcefulness. She hadn't expected that a nascent soul cultivator, besides his cultivation level, possessed such cunning that it surpassed even a nascent soul cultivator. Old Man Hu also glanced at Wang Lin, seeing no change in his expression, which further reinforced the rumors spread by Zhang Niu. Sitting under the reincarnation tree can create an opportunity for cultivators to comprehend reincarnation. It's especially helpful for cultivators in the intent realm of a nascent soul cultivator. The girl in white silk looked at Wang Lin, not believing that he wouldn't be tempted. Unfortunately, she still couldn't discern any change in Wang Lin's expression. Wang Lin's lips curled into a smile as he turned to look at Old Man Hu, saying, "Nonsense. The intent realm of a nascent soul cultivator is something one experiences firsthand. This reincarnation tree might be helpful to those at the late stage of nascent soul or those who have just reached the nascent soul stage. But for those at the mid-stage or higher of the nascent soul stage, its help will be minimal." Old Man Hu, you actually have another purpose in mind. The girl in white silk was stunned, looking at the old man in dark blue beside her. The old man also raised his eyebrows. Old Man Hu chuckled, concealing his true intentions, and said, "Brother Wang's knowledge is extraordinary. I admire you." "That's right. This is indeed the case." The girl in white silk furrowed her delicate eyebrows, looking at Old Man Hu. Old Man Hu smiled and said, "Taoist Ziden, don't blame me. If it were just the reincarnation tree, I wouldn't have followed you into the immortal relic land. My purpose is the reincarnation fruit." After he finished speaking, his gaze fell on Wang Lin, and he continued, "If Brother Wang hadn't participated, I would only have been 30% certain of success on this trip. Now, with Wang Lin accompanying me, the chances of success could be 60% or more." Reincarnation fruit. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, but his heart stirred slightly. He had anticipated hearing the words reincarnation tree earlier, and now he would hear them again. He paused for a moment, then said, "This reincarnation fruit, about the size of a fist, changes color every 2 hours, right?" Old Man Hu's eyes lit up as he carefully observed Wang Lin, saying, "Brother Wang's knowledge is truly extraordinary. That's the method to distinguish that fruit. The reincarnation fruit is a crucial treasure for cultivators awaiting the nascent soul stage. A cultivator at the late stage of nascent soul, upon consuming it, will increase their chances of successfully achieving the soul transformation stage by 30% or more. I've read about this in several ancient books, and only now can I confirm it. Wang Lin pondered. In the ancient gods' memories, there were also several types of spiritual fruits, the best supplements for the ancient god in his youth. The ancient god's body was very limited. Normally, even if he swallowed the fruit, it wasn't always beneficial. Even immortal spiritual fruits could only increase spiritual power. Only some immortal fruits, while not directly increasing spiritual power, could have a powerful effect on foundation establishment cultivators by applying their juices all over the body. In the ancient god's world, this was called body cleansing. When the ancient god was young, adult ancient gods would go and gather these fruits for body cleansing before being sent to the planet. After body cleansing, the ancient god's meridians would become hidden, completely integrated into his flesh and blood, and from then on, the absorption rate would increase dramatically. Once these meridians reappeared upon reaching adulthood, the spiritual power absorbed by the ancient god would become incredibly formidable. In ancient times, every ancient god was hunted by all living beings, because if they were allowed to exist, there would be no more spiritual power left in the surrounding area. But because the ancient gods were so powerful, those who participated in the slaughter often died before they succeeded. Only after purification could the true form become an ancient god. Wang Lin was silent for a moment, then said, "The immortal relocation land old man who said in a low voice, 'Brother Wang.' The immortal relocation land is indeed very dangerous. After all, this place possesses power that even the Vermilion Bird Kingdom must be wary of. But as long as we don't go too deep, those powerful savages certainly won't come out in large numbers." Wang Lin's knowledge of the immortal relocation land was not extensive. However, from the Jade Slip map, he could see that the immortal relocation land was very large, but its underground layers were even larger. How many layers the immortal relocation land had underground, no one except the Vermilion Bird Kingdom knew. Brother Wang surely knows that the barbarians were native to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom many years ago. When the Vermilion Bird Kingdom became a level 6 cultivation kingdom and was given the remnant Red Star by the Cultivation Alliance, a great war broke out with the barbarians. What was once a vibrant planet was nearly destroyed in the war, and even now more than half of it remains in ruins. All those places were inhabited by the barbarians. In that battle, 9/10 of the barbarians perished, leaving only a remnant that retreated into the underground realm of the immortal relic land and never came out again. Every 100 years, the Vermilion Bird Kingdom sends out many cultivators to exterminate them, but they can never completely wipe out these barbarians. The reincarnation tree grows underground and is a sacred artifact of the savages. But there isn't just one reincarnation tree. There are 9 in total, so we also have a chance. As for the reincarnation fruit, just go to the reincarnation tree, and I have a secret technique that can make it bear fruit within 3 hours. Old man who said in a low voice. Wang Lin was silent for a moment, then turned to the girl in white silk and said, "Why did your father enter the immortal relocation land back then?" The girl in white silk softly replied, "To get me a piece of reincarnation wood." Wang Lin didn't want to ask for details, and after a moment of contemplation, said to Old Man Who, "I can't decide on this immediately." Old Man Who nodded and said, "That's all right. The immortal relocation land is indeed dangerous. I hesitated a lot before deciding to go there once. Here's the deal. We'll wait for you at the entrance to the immortal realm for a month. If you don't show up, then this whole thing is cancelled." Wang Lin nodded. Old Man Who stood up and smiled, saying, "I won't bother you any further. Brother Wang, I await your news." After saying this, he immediately bowed and turned to leave. Qiu Saiping also hurriedly stood up and excused himself from Wang Lin. The girl in white hesitated for a moment, then softly said, "Zidin hopes to see you then, senior." She glanced deeply at Wang Lin, then stood up and left. The old man in the sky blue robe beside her also bowed to Wang Lin and followed behind the girl in white silk. Only after the 6 had left did Wang Lin pick up his teacup and take a sip, his eyes flickering. The reincarnation fruit is extremely beneficial to me. If I can obtain it, my strength will increase significantly. He pondered for a long time before patting his storage bag and taking out 3 wooden statues. 6 of the time-refining wooden statues were destroyed, leaving only these 3. They can still form the time-refining intent, but they're far inferior to before. It's a pity there's no 100-year-old wood material. Otherwise, I could have replenished them. As he put the statues away, Wang Lin's divine consciousness swept through his storage bag, his eyes flashing as he took out a short arm. This arm was very well preserved, covered in a thin layer of ice emitting waves of cold air. The Vermilion Bird Kingdom didn't issue a challenge because of Hong Dai. This is a bit strange. Wang Lin pondered for a long time, unable to understand 100 things. A battle with Hong Dai is inevitable. As long as Hong Dai doesn't enter the nascent soul stage, I still have hope of winning. This arm is very useful now. Wang Lin sneered, his left hand sweeping in the air, instantly sending a stone chair flying to his face. The chair seemed to disintegrate and writhe, transforming into a stone basin. Wang Lin threw Hong Dai's severed arm into it, then formed a hand seal. A black light immediately appeared in his hand. Wang Lin pointed downwards, and the black light fell into the basin, then into the severed arm. Then Wang Lin patted his storage bag with his right hand, and 2 jade bottles flew out. Inside the bottles were items he had randomly acquired over the past few hundred years: demon beast poison pills. Wang Lin swung his right hand, and the 2 small bottles shattered, releasing 2 streams of blood-red liquid that mixed into the severed arm. Then Wang Lin's eyes flickered, and he formed a hand seal, unleashing a dark light. The dark light, upon appearing, transformed into a skull that burrowed into the arm. Wang Lin didn't stop, continuously striking out 99 skulls, all of which burrowed into his arm. The arm's color instantly changed. The previously snow-white color turned into a terrifying mix of black and red, emitting a strong, foul stench. Having finished, Wang Lin's right hand swung upwards, and the stone basin containing the arm immediately contracted and sealed. Meanwhile, in a picturesque landscape within the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, Hong Dai sat cross-legged on a lotus leaf in a pond, meditating with her eyes closed. Surrounded by verdant mountains and clear waters, she resembled a celestial realm, occasionally encountering a few spirit beasts. Several long-bearded carp swam slowly in the pond, their eyes sparkling with intelligence. Hong Dai wore a red dress, except for the hem of her right arm. Before her sat 3 lotus leaves, a middle-aged man with a dignified and extraordinary appearance. He looked at Hong Dai, his eyes filled with tenderness, and softly said, "Sister Hong Dai, I have brought you the spirit of the East Sea, which can regrow your arm, but why don't you use it?" Hong Dai opened her eyes and calmly said, "Every time I see my right sleeve empty, I must kill Zheng Niu to feel at peace. If I don't kill Zheng Niu, my right arm will never recover. Brother, you don't need to persuade me anymore." Zheng Niu! A flash of killing intent flickered in the middle-aged man's eyes. That Zheng Niu wanted to destroy your Dao heart, but unexpectedly, relying on the hatred of losing an arm, your Dao heart not only remained unharmed but also became perfect. This time, Zhuge Mountain wants you to fight him, which suits you perfectly. Hong Dai raised her head and looked into the distance. HMPH, if it weren't for the Vermilion Bird's command, I would have left the mountain long ago. I'd go capture this Zheng Niu and bring him before my junior sister, letting her do whatever she wants with him. A fierce glint flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. Hong Dai was about to speak when her expression changed. A black line suddenly appeared on her forehead, filled with a reddish glow, and immediately spread out. Hong Dai quickly touched her forehead with her left hand. Her complexion fluctuated between black and red, and after a long time, the black line on her forehead slowly receded. Hong Dai opened her eyes, revealing deep hatred. I didn't expect this Zheng Niu to use my arm for his cultivation, intending to harm me using that method. Hong Dai's left hand formed a hand seal, continuously striking several magic seals, all landing on her forehead. After a while, her gloomy expression improved slightly, and she sat down again. Junior sister, let me go kill this Zheng Niu. Regardless of Vermilion Bird Mountain's objections, I must kill him. At most, they'll only punish me with 100 years of seclusion. A flicker of pain crossed the middle-aged man's eyes as he straightened up and turned to leave. Brother, please stop. If you want to kill Zheng Niu, let me go first. Vermilion Bird Mountain has twice sent word that if anyone intentionally violates the rules, it won't just be 100 years of seclusion, Hong Dai said in a low voice. The middle-aged man's eyes darkened, and he sat down. But after sitting down, he immediately took out a jade slip, pressed it against his forehead for a moment, and then threw it away. You don't show your face, but send some subordinate cultivation nations to do it. That way, Vermilion Bird Mountain won't be able to extort me. Hangdai said nothing, only tightly closed her eyes, using all her strength to seal the black thread hidden in her forehead. To the east of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom lies a mountain whose shape resembles a vermilion bird, hence its name, Vermilion Bird Mountain. Vermilion Bird Mountain is the sacred land of the entire Vermilion Bird Kingdom. All decisions concerning the Vermilion Bird Kingdom must be approved by Vermilion Bird Mountain before they can be implemented. One day, a young man dressed in white arrived at the foot of Vermilion Bird Mountain. His face showed difficulty. After hesitating for a long time at the foot of the mountain, he gritted his teeth and stepped onto the steps. The young man in white stopped outside a palace in the middle of Vermilion Bird Mountain, knelt on one knee, and loudly said, "Disciple in white robes Sun Yushan requests an audience with the elder." After a long while, a voice came from within the palace. "What is the matter? Earlier, I received orders to go to the Chu Kingdom to find Zheng Niu and deliver a challenge. But Zheng Niu has not yet accepted the challenge and wants to delay it for 10 years. Sun Yushan dared not lie and explained the whole situation. HMPH, this Zheng Niu is so unreasonable. You step back, someone will go and bring him back. A somewhat gloomy voice came from inside the palace. Sun Yushan's forehead was covered in sweat, and he hurriedly stood up and retreated. Ziwu, go and bring Zheng Niu back here. The voice from inside the palace rang out again, and immediately a figure appeared outside the palace. This person's body was shrouded in a layer of mist, making their face indistinct. Want to live, or want to die? Ziwu said lazily. Whoever. The voice from inside the palace came again. All right. Ziwu turned around, about to leave. But at that moment, a flame suddenly shot from the top of Jukyu Mountain and flew into the palace. Wait a moment. The voice from inside the palace said slowly, with a hint of surprise. After a while, a soft snort came from inside the palace, saying, "Enough. You don't need to go anymore. Just wait for him for 10 years. Ziwu shrugged, his body flashing and disappearing into Juk Mountain. Inside the palace, an old man with graying hair and eyebrows held a reddish-pink jade slip in his hand, muttering, "What kind of person is this Zheng Niu? He's intervened 3 times in a row." At this moment, Wang Lin sat cross-legged in the mountain valley. Before him a particularly sharp war chariot. Wang Lin looked at the chariot, his face showing neither joy nor sorrow. After a long while, his eyes flashed, and with a wave of his right hand, Lei Washington inside instantly transformed, falling with a thud to the side. Leiwa's injuries had completely healed. Its eyes looked at Wang Lin with gratitude. Without Wang Lin's help, it would surely have died with these injuries. Lei Washington, I want to retrieve the beast-taming scroll. If you want to follow me, you must stay by my side from now on. If you don't want to, you can leave, okay? Wang Lin looked at Lei Washington and said softly. Lei Washington nodded. Wang Lin formed hand seals, continuously casting several spiritual spells onto the beast-taming scroll. Immediately, many symbols flickered on the scroll, then slowly flew out from above, growing larger and larger. Finally, a strange thing formed around Wang Lin, a circle made up of many symbols. The symbols on the outside were the largest, becoming smaller towards the center. At the center of the circle was the beast-taming scroll. Release! Wang Lin softly shouted, and these symbols immediately began to move. Gradually, strands of green energy floated out from the beast-taming scroll, piercing through the mass of symbols, as if more than half of them had flown out of a labyrinth and merged into Leiwa's body. Lei Washington immediately let out a roar. His body trembled, and his eyes suddenly flashed with brilliant light. The symbols of the beast-taming scroll did not dissipate but continued to rotate. Wang Lin did not look at Lei Washington, but shifted his gaze to the war chariot. He made a hand gesture, pointing his finger outwards, and a thick cloud of black mist immediately flew out from the war chariot. Within the mist, 2 bright eyes became increasingly visible. Then, a series of growls emanated from within. After the mist dissipated, the war chariot's soul beast was revealed. This was the smallest of the 3 war chariots. It had been sealed by Wang Lin, and now it had awakened. Its fierce gaze instantly focused on Wang Lin, revealing a ferocious expression. It had 3 heads, a bull's body, a dragon's tail, and even a mouth, nose, and eyes at the end of its tail. Wang Lin's gaze was calm. He bit off the tip of his finger, letting a drop of fresh blood fall onto the beast-taming scroll. Then he pointed at the war chariot spirit. The beast realm instantly shook, and the symbols outside suddenly appeared in an instant, transforming into a rainbow formed by countless symbols that swirled around the soul beast. The soul beast continuously roared, trying to struggle free. But at this moment, a black chain flew out from the war chariot and tightly bound the beast. The rainbow formed by the symbols immediately descended, each one imprinted on the soul beast, shimmering with golden light. The soul beast roared even more fiercely. Some of the chains binding it even broke. But many more chains immediately flew out from the war chariot and bound it again. Finally, all the symbols were imprinted on the soul beast. It gradually lost its strength to struggle, but the ferocity in its eyes intensified. Wang Lin's gaze remained calm, waiting until all the symbols were imprinted before he softly said, "Retrieve." The symbols on the soul beast's body flashed intensely. Immediately afterward, the colors of these emblems instantly changed from yellow to black. Then one by one they flew up and disappeared into the beast realm. When the last emblem fell into the beast realm, a beast identical to the war chariot's soul immediately flew out from the circle. At this moment, the war chariot instantly transformed into a black light and was absorbed into the beast realm. Wang Lin took a deep breath, patted his storage bag with his right hand, and 8 top-grade spirit stones immediately flew out to either side. Then, gritting his teeth, he waved his right hand to summon, and the beast realm immediately flew to rest in his right hand. Immediately, a huge suction force, many times greater than that of the Thunder Toad from back then, suddenly emanated. Wang Lin's body instantly withered, like a dried corpse, but his eyes still shone brightly. The 8 supreme-grade spirit stones beside him immediately flashed with dazzling light. A massive surge of spiritual power frantically flowed into Wang Lin's body, then through the beast-taming scroll. This process continued for 3 days. After 3 days, the gravitational pull gradually dissipated, and Wang Lin's body recovered from its withered state. One of the 8 supreme-grade spirit stones beside him suddenly shattered with a loud boom, turning into dust and dissipating. Wang Lin opened his eyes, revealing a hint of fear. He lowered his head and glanced at the bronze ring on his wrist, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. The gravitational pull of this ring can shatter a supreme-grade spirit stone. This attack power must be very strong. The divine archery chariot, I want to find an opportunity to see if it lives up to its name. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, leaving only 7 supreme-grade spirit stones, which he didn't put into his storage bag but placed close to his body. Based on his understanding of the beast domain, each use would likely require absorbing a large amount of spiritual power. Having these top-grade spirit stones was the best precaution. Wang Lin touched the beast domain. He straightened up and looked at Li Washington beside him. Li Washington remained motionless, guarding Wang Lin for 3 consecutive days. Seeing Wang Lin look at him, it raised its large head. He then sat on its back and said with a smile, "Do you want to follow me?" Li was belly contracted, and it let out a cry of agreement. "Okay, from now on, I will treat you like a Wen beast." After saying this, Wang Lin immediately potted his storage bag, and Wen beast flew out. After many years, the beast's body was even larger than before, like a small mountain. A cold light flashed in its enormous mouth, extremely terrifying. However, as soon as it appeared, it cautiously looked towards Li Washington, continuously barking loudly. Li's eyes swept over Wen beast, revealing a mocking expression. Wang Lin smiled. He jumped down from Li Wa's back, not bothering to look at the 2 beasts staring at each other, and walked towards the pagoda. Outside the pagoda, he took a deep breath, his expression solemn, and clasped his hands together, saying, "Senior, I have accepted Senior Zhou Yi's entrustment to look after you for 1,000 years. The immortal relic land is extremely dangerous. I don't have many magical treasures, so I would like to borrow your immortal sword for a while. I hope Senior will grant my request." After speaking, Wang Lin bowed and entered the pagoda. On the top floor of the pagoda, Wang Lin saw the female corpse dressed in white. The female corpse lay on the immortal jade bed, her eyes closed, without a trace of breath. Beside her were 2 immortal swords, one large and one small, emitting bursts of sword energy. Wang Lin looked at the 2 immortal swords and pondered for a moment. His gaze shifted to the large sword, lingering for a long time. When Wang Lin first saw this large sword in the immortal realm, he felt a sense of familiarity. It seemed he had seen it somewhere before. At that time, the situation was critical, and he didn't have time to think much. After returning to the Vermilion Bird Star, he had to stay by Li Muan's side, so he basically had no time to pay attention to it. Now that everything was over, he saw this large sword again. His feeling of familiarity grew even stronger. I must have seen this sword before, but where have I seen it? Wang Lin pondered for a long time, his right hand resting on the sword, feeling no sense of unfamiliarity. He grasped this enormous immortal sword. In fact, this sword wasn't really a sword. It resembled a rectangular door. A door. Wang Lin was stunned. A pensive expression appeared in his eyes. After a moment, his gaze became serious, and he exclaimed, "Giant, it's the giant." Back then, Wang Lin was at the Hengyu sect. Before the arrival of the Xuandao sect, he had taken the sect's jade slip and gone to the sword pavilion to choose a flying sword. At that time, he chose a flying sword with the most pretentious name in the entire Zhao Kingdom, Giant. Wang Lin descended the pagoda with a dazed expression. He sat cross-legged outside the pagoda, staring at the great sword in his hand. Memories from 400 years ago flashed through Wang Lin's mind. He remembered the moment he saw the giant sword and felt a surge of emotion. He still clearly remembered the giant sword, its entire body shimmering with golden light. But the surface of the giant sword had a layer of golden metal. Moreover, this golden layer was merely a veil concealing the peerless treasure sword within. Beneath the golden metal layer was the true material of the giant sword, the most common type of steel. Wang Lin gripped the hilt of the great sword and recalled that the giant sword from back then had two enormous spirit stones embedded in its hilt. But these spirit stones possessed no spiritual power and were merely for decoration. Even the tassels at the hilt were made of gold thread. The giant sword from back then shattered along with Wang Lin's storage bag, disappearing into a spatial rift. Without this immortal sword, Wang Lin would never have remembered the giant sword of yesteryear. But now he saw that, except for the spirit stones embedded in the hilt and the gold thread tassels, the two swords were astonishingly similar. Wang Lin's eyes flickered. He thought this wasn't a coincidence. Could it be that the ancestor who created the giant sword had seen this immortal sword before? But he couldn't explain it at all. That senior in Zhao Kingdom was at most only at the nascent soul stage. With his strength, how could he have entered the immortal realm, encountered this immortal sword, and even not known where it was located until it was finally summoned by the girl in white? Wang Lin fell silent. He recalled that when he saw the giant sword, there were records on either side detailing the story of that senior's life. This person was originally a useless member of the Hengyu sect, but ultimately saved the Hengyu sect from a great calamity. After his death, he left the giant sword in the sword pavilion for someone destined to receive it. Even a useless person can save the sect from disaster. Back then, I didn't think much of it, but now it seems this senior definitely has a secret. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he looked at the immortal sword in his hand. An immortal sword without a sword soul loses its sword power. To use it, you need a sword soul. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he patted his storage bag with his right hand. Sulaguo, come out. A dark light flew out from the storage bag and transformed into the form of Sulaguo. After he appeared, he immediately punched his chest repeatedly with both hands, his eyes showing intense excitement. I'm finally out, haha. Sulaguo roared a few times. At this moment, Lei Washington and Wen Shu, who were still staring at each other, suddenly turned their heads to look at Sulaguo. Sulaguo hastily closed his mouth, cautiously observing the two beasts. Wang Lin's right hand swung up in a claw attack. Sulaguo groaned as he was seized and thrown into the immortal sword. The immortal sword immediately vibrated, and a golden light slowly emanated from it. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows, lightly touching his forehead with his right hand, and countless wandering souls immediately flew out. Under Wang Lin's will, they all entered the immortal sword. The sword's color instantly darkened. Not long after, all the golden light turned into black. Wang Lin placed his right hand on the sword. He remained silent for a long time, then muttered, using wandering souls as the sword soul can only unleash a small portion of this sword's power. If I could capture a soul-devouring technique, the sword's power would be restored. Unfortunately, there's no time. I must capture a soul-devouring technique later. Wang Lin straightened up, retracted his great sword, and placed his left hand on the pagoda. It immediately shrunk and fell into his hand, which he then put into his storage bag. Afterward, Wang Lin took a deep breath, retrieved the thunder frog and the spirit beast. His body moved slightly, and he vanished from the spot. In Xinghua village, in the Chu family's house, a middle-aged woman held a little girl in her arms. A gentle look appeared in her eyes. Ruer, your father went to Zhangjia village to get ginseng this time. When he returns, he will use it to nourish your body. This child doesn't know what's wrong with her. Her body is so weak. Oh. The woman held the child for a while longer, softly humming a folk song. The little girl's eyes were tightly closed, her breathing steady. She was clearly fast asleep. After a long while, when the child was completely asleep, the woman gently set her aside. She lightly kissed her forehead and went into the kitchen to prepare dinner. The woman had just left when another figure appeared in the room. Wang Lin gazed blankly at the little girl, his eyes filled with tenderness. His right hand trembled as he gently stroked the child's small face, softly saying, "Waner, I've forgotten the exact day, month, and year we met outside the cultivation demon realm." She smiled subtly, her gaze fixed on him. The little girl's beautiful eyelashes trembled slightly. She slowly opened her eyes, her clear black and white eyes staring at Wang Lin without making a sound. Her nascent soul had fallen asleep within her weak body, unable to retain any memories of the past. But some things are etched in a person's heart forever. Even if she had forgotten his voice, his face, the feelings she had for him would remain unchanged every time she thought of him. The little girl looked into Wang Lin's eyes. Her eyes gradually lost their clear black and white, becoming dreamy. Her frail body didn't even notice a single tear rolling down from the corner of her eye. Wang Lin's heart ached deeply. He stared blankly at the little girl. "Give me a single tear, and I can see the entire ocean in your heart." Wang Lin gazed at the little girl for a long time. A very long time. Time may pass, years may fade, but his gaze will remain forever. "I will come to get you," Wang Lin whispered. He looked at the little girl intently, then turned and left. As soon as he walked away, a mist welled up in the little girl's eyes. She sobbed softly. Her mother, who was cooking outside, immediately covered the pot and came in. She quickly hugged her child, gently caressing her. Gradually, the child stopped crying, but her eyes still looked out of the room, her gaze still as dreamy as before. Taiyan sat cross-legged in his cave dwelling. He had been guarding the little girl for a year. He seemed to have become accustomed to this kind of life. 6 months ago, Lu Fei used a sound transmission jade slip to say he wanted to replace Taiyan, but he refused. Since entering the cultivation world, Taiyan had never had a year of experience like this. Every day, he used his divine consciousness to scan the entire village, every household, every family, even every name he remembered. This feeling was very strange. In the past few months, Taiyan hadn't bothered to sit in meditation, immersing himself in the mortal world every day. Wang Lin entered the cave dwelling. When he saw Taiyan, his eyes suddenly became serious. Taiyan hurriedly stood up to greet Wang Lin. "Very good. Compared to Lu Fei, if you maintain this level of enlightenment, you will surely reach the nascent soul stage in the near future. But you need to pay attention to the fact that you must reach the nascent soul stage first," Wang Lin said in a low voice. Taiyan was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then took out a wooden statue of the ages and placed it beside him, saying, "This is for you. Feel it well." After saying this, he turned and left. Taiyan silently gazed at the wooden statue, seemingly enlightened. Wang Lin mounted the one beast and flew straight towards the immortal relic land. At this time, within the cultivation demon realm, a flow of energy surged, erupting from the shattered star chaos. The ancient god's body was within the shattered star chaos, in the sea of blood. The sea of blood had changed considerably compared to the past. All the stone spikes from years ago had disappeared, leaving only the spot where Tishan was. The entire sea of blood contained fewer than 100 cultivators. A red thread ran through their foreheads. They were all sitting in meditation with their eyes closed, immersed in the sea of blood. Among them were many people Wang Lin recognized, such as the ancient emperor. These cultivators all emitted an eerie aura, giving off a strong, pungent smell of blood. As they absorbed the blood, the plasma in the sea of blood gradually merged into their bodies. In the sea of blood, at the place where Thaxim had been years ago, a man with long, waist-length red hair sat cross-legged in meditation on a stone mace. His head was bowed low. On the ground beneath him were many characters carved with fingernails. All of these characters were just a name, Wang Lin. This man was Thak Sam, the one who had obtained the inheritance of the ancient god's power. He slowly raised his head, his red hair obscuring his face. Only his eyes, gleaming behind the red hair, were visible, revealing a glint of intense hatred. Wang Lin. The ancient god's body has reached its limit and is gradually weakening. I will soon break through. You shouldn't die prematurely. Preserve the inherited memories for me. The immortal relic land is a deep, dark mountain range shrouded in black mist. This dense black mist envelops the entire endless mountain range. The mountains are eerily silent, a kind of unsettling stillness that inspires fear. Deep within the mountains lies a colossal natural pit. The group of 6, including Old Man Hu, are currently sitting cross-legged outside the pit, appearing as tiny black dots from afar. Old Man Hu sat down cross-legged. He had been waiting here for nearly a month. Along the way, they hadn't encountered any danger. But ever since he left Wang Lin's residence and entered the immortal relic land, he had felt a constant sense of impending danger. As a nascent soul cultivator, he didn't think his feelings were unfounded. There must be a reason. Now, sitting outside the deep pit, his fear intensified. Including Taoist Wang, there are a total of 3 nascent soul cultivators. As long as we don't go too deep into the layers, there will definitely be no danger, Old Man Hu thought to himself. Many years ago, he had entered this place once. At that time, he reached the 3rd layer, and although he encountered some danger along the way, he safely overcame it and finally obtained what he needed before leaving. This was also the reason why he came here. But now, Old Man Hu suddenly felt a little regretful. He looked at the huge deep pit at his feet, his expression becoming gloomy. Z, are you sure the reincarnation tree is on the 3rd layer? Old Man Hu looked at the girl in white silk beside him. The girl nodded and softly said, I once followed my father to this place, and I remember very clearly where there was a withered reincarnation tree. But my father's cultivation wasn't enough, so he took me back. Old Man Hu pondered, thinking to himself that the 3rd level wasn't particularly dangerous. As long as they didn't go from the 4th level downwards, this trip would surely be successful. Moreover, if the reincarnation tree had withered, there certainly wouldn't be any savages guarding it. He didn't explain this clearly to Wang Lin. Old Man Hu's gaze fell on the deep pit. Just then, a whooshing sound came from deep within the mountains, and everyone immediately looked in that direction. They saw a ferocious-looking demon beast, as large as a small mountain, appearing in the sky above them. On the beast's head sat a young man in white, none other than Wang Lin. A gleam of joy flashed in Old Man Hu's eyes, and he laughed heartily, saying, Brother Wang has arrived. I think this trip will surely be a success. Wang Lin jumped down from the beast, smiled, and nodded to everyone, saying, I apologize for keeping you waiting, but I encountered some minor troubles on the way. What? Old Man Hu's eyes showed a hint of seriousness. Wang Lin flipped his right hand, and a human head appeared in his hand, which he then placed on the ground. The head looked pitch black and very dirty. Its eyes filled with rage, and a prominent black mark protruded from its face. A savage. Old Man Hu's expression changed. When I entered the immortal relic land, I discovered this person following me, intending to ambush me, Wang Lin said. Old Man Hu took a step forward and lightly touched the head's forehead. The black marks on the head immediately began to move and then condensed on the forehead, forming half a leaf of a strange plant. He wasn't a pure savage, but a cultivator parasitized and transformed by a savage, Old Man Hu said with a grim expression. What? Wang Lin looked at the head. Suluo hesitated for a moment, then asked, Ancestor, how did you recognize him? Could it be because this leaf isn't intact? Not only him, but everyone except the girl in white silk was puzzled. Old Man Hu's expression was serious as he pointed to the leaf on the forehead of the severed head and said, Although I've never seen a true savage, from the explanations in some ancient books, only 3 or more leaves indicate a savage with pure blood. The rest are parasitic transformations. But savages born from transformation shouldn't appear here. They can only be seen in the 2nd level. Looking at the severed head on the ground, an invisible pressure suddenly arose in everyone's hearts. Old Man Hu's face showed hesitation. Then his eyes became serious, and he said, Brother Wang, to achieve wealth and glory, one must not fear danger. Let's go. Wang Lin was silent for a moment, then nodded. Old Man Who led the way, jumping straight into the deep pit. Then Wang Lin jumped down, followed by the others. This pit was very deep, and people kept falling into it. Wang Lin saw many kinds of plants growing on the four sides of the pit, like vegetation growing in mud. Soon after, everyone landed on the ground. This was a flat world. The ground was black, the sky was also black, and the surroundings were unusually quiet. For cultivators, although there was no light here, it didn't affect their vision. They could see clearly in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin squatted down and picked up a handful of earth. The mud here was very hard, like steel. The first level wasn't dangerous. But now, even outside there are mutated savages lurking, so there are probably savages here too. Everyone needs to be careful. Old Who said in a low voice. Vi bang lim hio thine thit quay. Chinay qua alenden thine thit king de them doggc tone bien. Yck tangdant, sao ki eat lavati tan noi chien vvi now. Zat hun hang y chang hong. Vnv eat la dien chu won gi bei via fia hong. Tren huing sai cam gi county bienuen, ha la sai sat now, via mt con trong ji fong ben fia. Chiko vi bond lim, each lava loja mccg shin yen kia via mt vien nathong. Con gi conge mccg la tring sao ki sai val ke thine tun ko via hung hot. Nang hanna en chen le kai jiko, dcc theo huing sai king noi mt li now. Will I give I hen ggc mtlsc thun mtv bang lam jate nyan lo lan. Hin non via fia southie mthio y quang dung tccg arch t non trong ne nt ju sai hin fia sao mgi gi. Y quang tu tan, ho then ntd non tok tai bu x dung delta gchkc the. D non ne tran te chen kovai hgo nk mel yen. His eyes gleamed with red light, and his massive hand lunged towards Suluo. Suluo's expression changed, and a beam of light shot from his mouth, transforming into a flying sword. It carried a sharp, icy gleam and thrust straight towards the savage. The savage's body twisted eerily, dodging the flying sword. His right hand transformed into a claw and struck downwards. Suluo quickly retreated. 5 large tears appeared in the front of his robe, revealing flashes of silver light inside, clearly indicating he was wearing armor. Having landed a blow, the savage immediately retreated. Stay! Old Man Who snorted softly, his body motionless, and extended his hand, unleashing a claw attack from a distance. The savage let out a strange howl, and the black markings on all 4 sides of his body immediately moved. A wisp of black energy flew out from the markings and quickly entered the savage's body. He roared loudly and slashed out with his right hand. All the dark energy concentrated on his right fist, and he punched into the air. Old Man Whose expression remained unchanged, but a murderous glint appeared in his eyes. He clenched his right fist, and the wild man's fist immediately cracked, blood and flesh mixed together. The wild man let out a pain scream and quickly retreated. Old Man Whose right hand immediately pointed into the air, and a spiritual spell suddenly shot out, piercing the wild man's chest. The wild man's body immediately tilted and fell to the ground. Old Man Who took a few steps forward, his right hand lightly touching the wild man's head. All the black markings on the wild man's body immediately converged at his forehead, transforming into a complete black leaf. It seems the immortal relic land has undergone some changes we were unaware of. This type of wild man that transforms into a leaf only appeared on the 2nd level in the past, Old Man Who said in a low voice. Suluo touched his chest, a look of horror on his face. This wild man's speed was too fast, and he could dodge flying swords. If he hadn't been wearing armor, he would have probably been struck in the chest by the opponent's claw just now. 3 days later, the 7 people traveled east from the 1st level to the gate of the 2nd level. During this time, they encountered 9 wild men. These wild men appeared without any discernible signs. Although they used their divine sense to search, it would have been very difficult to find them if they didn't appear. Of the 9 savage beasts, except for the last one, none had many markings on their bodies. After death, only a single leaf remained on their foreheads. The last savage beast appeared at the entrance to the 2nd level. This one had slightly more black markings than the others. Its right arm, in particular, was densely covered with black markings. Wang Lin noticed that these markings also contained some symbols. After killing him, Wang Lin discovered that the beast had 2 leaves on its forehead. Its strength was equivalent to a late-stage core formation cultivator. The second level of the Immortal Relic Land looked no different from the first. It was still a dark area. However, it emitted an unsettling aura. This aura had no effect on Wang Lin, but it greatly affected Siluo and the others. Along the way, Wang Lin also felt a little puzzled. Why did this old man surnamed who bring Siluo and that girl here? Their cultivation levels were only at the core formation stage. A slight mistake here would be fatal. Wang Lin didn't ask for clarification. Given his personality, if he encountered danger, he wouldn't risk helping unless he had the ability to do so. On the ground of the second level, he occasionally saw some black animal bones, and even some rotting animal corpses. Wang Lin didn't recognize these demonic beasts. They were different from the demonic beasts in the cultivation Demon Sea. Just as everyone entered the second level, Wang Lin's expression changed. He saw a black light appear 10 meters away from them. It didn't dare approach and stop there, transforming into a wild man. This savage's appearance was vastly different from the others on the first level. He wore a fur coat, with a quarter of his body covered in black patterns and markings. His eyes weren't red, but distinctly black and white. However, a closer look revealed a strange glint deep within them. This savage was unlike any of the others on the first level. Even the savages on the first level with 2 leaves displayed a frenzied look in their eyes. Upon seeing them, they didn't care about the difference in strength and attacked ferociously. But this one didn't advance, standing 10 yards away. He silently observed them, especially the girl in white. A savage. He's a true savage. The talisman on his body has reached the 3-leaf standard, equivalent to a nascent soul cultivator. The girl in white suddenly exclaimed. The savage licked his lips with his tongue. A loud cry erupted from his mouth, and suddenly more than 10 streaks of dark light appeared from all directions, transforming into a group of wild men, each bearing markings, who charged towards Wang Lin and his companions. The 3-leaf wild man, however, stood behind them, sneering coldly, his eyes filled with malice. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he shot forward like an arrow. In an instant, he flew past the charging wild men, heading straight for the 3-leaf wild man. The 3-leaf wild man showed no fear at Wang Lin's approach, instead stroking the markings on his body with his right hand, and a piece of animal skin immediately appeared. He uttered several complex incantations. The animal skin in his hand instantly transformed into a large flame and shot straight towards Wang Lin, engulfing him in flames. The 3-leaf wild man then produced another piece of animal skin, biting off a fingertip and drawing a few lines on it before throwing it out. The flames immediately intensified. But at that moment, Wang Lin flew out of the flames. These flames were completely unable to cling to him. As Wang Lin emerged, the flames grew smaller and smaller, eventually extinguishing completely. The 3-leafed wild man was stunned and, without saying a word, immediately retreated, disappearing into the darkness. How could Wang Lin let him escape? He instantly teleported after him. Meanwhile, the other wild men who charged towards Old Man Hu's group were all killed by the old man's wave of his sleeve. At this point, Wang Lin returned, carrying the 3-leafed wild man in his hand, and threw him to the ground. Then, Wang Lin's gaze fell upon the girl in white silk, and he coldly said, Dallas Zidin. You can discern the wild men's level. I hope you can tell me everything you know. The girl in white silk nodded slightly and said, It's not that I didn't mention it before, but after entering this place, some memories appeared in my mind. The attacks of the wildlings are different from those of cultivators. They are divided into 2 types. One is the spellcaster, and the other is the beast warrior. This one is a 3-leaf spellcaster. The black symbols on their bodies are used to classify them. The more symbols, the stronger their power. These symbols are drawn with the blood of demonic beasts. Thus they can gain the power of demonic beasts. Just then, a sound of wind tearing through the air came from afar. Immediately afterward, a black beam of light shot out like an arrow, transforming into a gigantic face. The eyes on this face, densely covered with symbols, swept downwards, their gaze falling upon the wildling lying on the ground. Then, the face sucked in forcefully, and the symbols on the body of the 3-leaf wildling immediately moved, as if alive, flying out of his body. In an instant, they were sucked into the mouth of the giant face. Old Man Who snorted softly, about to advance, but suddenly stopped, his expression changing. Wang Lin's face also turned grim. He saw 5 streaks of black light suddenly appear in the distance, instantly transforming into gigantic faces with sinister eyes, staring intently at everyone. These are 5-leaf spellcasters, equivalent to cultivators at the nascent soul stage. The voice of the girl in white silk trembled. Everyone disperse and gather at the gate to the 3rd floor in the far north, old man who said quickly, grabbing Silua and the girl and immediately flying straight into the distance. Qiu Siping hurriedly followed. Wang Lin said nothing more, turning and flying away. The giant faces, seeing everyone fly away, immediately scattered and chased after them. Following Wang Lin was the person who had appeared earliest, absorbing the symbols of the 3-leaf wild man. Wang Lin's gaze was calm. After flying for a while, he stopped, turned around, and looked towards the pursuing figure. He potted his storage bag, and the Forbiddance banner immediately appeared in his hand. He shook his hand, and many Forbiddance artifacts suddenly flew out and swirled around his body. At the same time, the Thunder Frog also flew out of the storage bag, transforming into a gigantic body with its belly bulging as it flew towards the giant face. The Thunder Frog opened its mouth wide, and a loud explosion resounded. A lightning ball shot out from its mouth, carrying a frenzied, space-staring force. The eyes on the giant face showed a strange expression, and a lot of black mist immediately gushed out from its face, quickly condensing into a huge shield. The lightning ball flew towards it and struck the shield. Boom! The shield trembled, some cracks appearing, but they were immediately filled in by the dark mist. After the lightning ball passed through, the dark mist on the shield became even thicker, and then a person emerged from within. This was a middle-aged man, his hair tied back, wearing a fur coat. Half of his body was covered with symbols. The symbols weren't drawn directly on his body, but rather raised in a rather chaotic manner, clearly not drawn in a single layer. His face was the same, half of it covered in symbols. People from outside the cursed talisman star, you haven't kept your promise. Someone has entered this place in less than 100 years. Kill them. The middle-aged man's voice was slow and hesitant. Wang Lin's eyes flickered. He couldn't detect any spiritual power in the other person, but the symbols gave him a sense of danger. The middle-aged man used his right hand to stroke the symbols on his body. The symbols immediately flashed, then transformed into a rainbow, swirling around his right hand and rapidly rotating. He quickly tapped the symbols with his left hand. The symbols he touched instantly changed position. In an instant, these symbols gathered together to form a rainbow emitting boundless energy. When he waved his hand, the symbols scattered in all directions, covering a radius of 100 meters. Extremely fast. The powerful symbols contracted and then suddenly shot straight towards Wang Lin. The Forbiddance energy surrounding Wang Lin's body instantly transformed into a roaring Forbiddance dragon, flying towards the symbols. Boom, boom, boom. A series of thunderous explosions suddenly erupted. Each Forbiddance energy and symbol, after colliding violently, dissipated into thin air. Ah! The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows. His right hand swung in a claw-like motion, instantly capturing a symbol in his hand, which in a flash transformed into a piece of animal hide, which he threw out. The animal hide immediately burst into flames, and the speed of the symbol's attacks increased dramatically. Amidst the continuous rumbling sounds, Wang Lin's Forbiddance energy dwindled. Wang Lin remained motionless, observing the symbols. His eyes flashed, and he thought to himself, so the savage's attack method mainly uses these symbols. Although the symbols don't possess spiritual power, they have a strange kind of strength. Seeing the opponent throw the animal hide, a murderous glint appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. He potted his storage bag, and the giant immortal sword instantly hovered before him. He grabbed the immortal sword, let out a low shout, raised the sword, and slashed down. Loud explosions resounded, as if splitting the heavens and earth. A black light flashed on the immortal sword, then immediately slashed down. The middle-aged man's face changed drastically, and he frantically waved his hands. All the symbols instantly returned, gathering in front of him to form a shield. But when the immortal sword slashed down on the shield, the black light flashed and sliced through, and the shield shattered in an instant. The middle-aged man cried out in fear, his body instantly transforming into black mist, which then enveloped a gigantic face and flew backward like an arrow. As the black sword light of the immortal sword struck, a tragic scream came from within the black mist, and blood immediately splattered onto the ground. The face's speed paused for a moment, but then it flew away even faster. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He didn't pursue, but instead landed on the back of Lei Washington. The power of a single sword strike couldn't kill him. Even a late-stage nascent soul cultivator would find it difficult to block this sword strike without an extremely powerful magic weapon. This five-leaf wild man is truly formidable. The thunder toad leapt into the air, its belly swelling as it opened its mouth and spat out a lightning ball. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the lightning ball, moving with the speed of lightning, transformed into streaks of electric light chasing after the fleeing middle-aged man. It flew into the black mist. Boom! A deafening explosion resounded, the black mist dissipated, and the giant face inside vanished. Wang Lin jumped from the thunder toad's back to where the black mist had dissipated. The place was filled with the smell of fresh blood. The middle-aged man's body, struck by the lightning ball, was dead. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then retracted the thunder toad. He flew straight north. Along the way, his divine consciousness spread out, and after a few hours, Wang Lin's expression changed slightly as he looked to the right. Then his body transformed into a shooting star and flew away like an arrow. There, two barbarians were seen. One had graying hair, and his entire body was covered in symbols from head to toe. Beside him was a young man whose body was not covered in many symbols, less than a quarter of his. In front of them was a muddy swamp, from which bubbles rose and burst repeatedly. The two immediately saw Wang Lin. The young man stared blankly at the old man beside him without speaking. The old man's eyes were calm. He glanced at Wang Lin, but ignored him and shifted his gaze to the swamp. At that moment, a gigantic dragon flew out from the swamp. It roared and lunged towards the old man. The old man calmly patted the symbols on his right hand. The symbols on his body immediately rose and condensed towards his right hand. Almost instantly, the symbols formed a long saber. The old man grasped the saber and leapt forward, slashing at the dragon. The dragon roared and dodged the blade, but instead lunged at the old man. However, in the instant of impact, the old man's body shattered into countless symbols, scattering in all directions. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed. Since entering the immortal relic land, he had encountered several barbarians whose divine techniques were completely different from those of cultivators. The old man's body transformed into numerous symbols, spreading to the side of the dragon. Then, the powerful symbols shrunk and instantly burrowed into its body. The dragon roared in pain, its massive body flying out of the swamp, sending a large cloud of mud flying. The young wildling dodged the mud, his eyes shining as he looked at the dragon. The dragon weakened rapidly. At this moment, a multitude of symbols flew out from its body, condensing into one place, forming the shape of an old man. The old man seemed to emerge from within the dragon's body. When the last symbol merged back into its body, the old man leapt onto the dragon, his right hand slashing down at its head. A large wound appeared on the dragon's head, and immediately a large amount of fresh blood gushed from the wound. The young man cheered, leaping up and bathing in the fresh blood. The black symbols on his body immediately moved as if absorbing the blood. After a while, the young man sat cross-legged. His right hand was covered in dragon blood. Many new symbols were drawn on his body, replacing the old ones. Seeing this scene, Wang Lin suddenly remembered someone. That year, when he stole Tang Li's foundation establishment, he went into a pile of ruins and saw that strange person. The symbols all over the young man's body emitted an eerie light, instantly becoming dazzling but then immediately dimming again. Finally, the symbols on the young man's body stretched out a little and then slowly stopped. The young man's eyes radiated excitement, and he spoke to the old man in a strange language for a while. The moment he heard this strange language, Wang Lin immediately confirmed that the strange person from back then must have a connection with them, because this language was very similar to the strange person's. The old savage man nodded, patted the young man's head for a while, then his gaze shifted to Wang Lin. The old man glanced at the beast-taming scroll in Wang Lin's hand, placed his hands in front of his chest, slightly bowed, and said, "You outsider. I am Zamo, a member of the Immortal Tribe, a six-leaf spellcaster. Greetings." Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he clasped his hands and said, "Good. I am Wang Lin, a nascent soul cultivator." The old man looked at Wang Lin and said, "The 100-year deadline hasn't arrived yet. All cultivators who come to the Immortal Relic Land must die. You didn't take advantage of my disciple's bloodbath just now, so I don't want to make things difficult for you. Don't enter the third level, leave quickly, and you might have a chance to survive. What? Wang Lin's eyes flashed. The old man said, even if your companion manages to enter the third level, he won't be able to leave here alive. There are 7 leaf spellcasters on the third level. Their strength is equivalent to your nascent soul cultivators. Wang Lin remained silent, then said, thank you. After saying that, he pointed at the young man and asked, he just used the blood of a demonic beast to draw symbols on himself. Is this a secret technique of your clan? The old man nodded and said, that's right. Our Immortal Relic clan uses symbols to absorb the power of demonic beasts. The stronger the beast, the greater the power it bestows upon us. Wang Lin glanced at the old man, clasped his hands, and his body flashed, disappearing from the spot. The young man stared intently at the spot where Wang Lin had just vanished. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He softly said, why didn't Master capture him and hand him over to the clan leader? The old man shook his head and said, your talisman power is insufficient. You couldn't see the talisman's soul behind him. If I'm not mistaken, that talisman's soul belongs to Momo. Someone who can kill a 5-leaf spellcaster without being injured even I'm not entirely sure I can capture him. Once I act, it will be dangerous. The killing intent in the young man's eyes intensified as he said, I'm not afraid of death. Death is just returning to the talisman. The old man patted the young man's head, a hint of kindness in his eyes, and said, our clan lacks sufficient strength. Killing these people will be handled by powerful warriors from other tribes. On the other hand, we can sense an immense surge of spiritual power emanating from the bronze bracelet on this person's wrist. It's best not to provoke him. The young man nodded and said, sooner or later, we will launch a direct attack and drive all these outsiders out of the rune star.